Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. It is the 16th of June. Can't believe we are halfway through the month, marking halfway through the year already. What the heck? Needs more coffee, Princess. Hello, welcome to chat. How is the year like half over already? This is ridiculous. This is pretty wild. Anyway, need more coffee, Princess. Good to have you. Thanks for dropping by and saying hello. I'm gonna turn up that light just a little bit. Yeah, thought I would go through some Discord stuff. We absolutely crushed our goal. We were trying to hit $1,000. We hit 1,300, so I'm like, might as well bump it up some more. But I'm meeting with that group next. Uh, it moved. Sorry, it moved my audio over to a different machine for the music in the background. I'm meeting that group next week to give them that money, so I'm pretty excited about that. Slim Pickens, good to see you as well. But yeah, how's the year half over already? DMAT, good to see you. The middle of the year is the end of June. I know, but we're almost there. We're like halfway through the month to get us halfway through the year. That's redonkulous. It's almost 6 months till Christmas. Get in on the I'm like, somebody voted get in on the action. I'm like, what? That's just the sticker thing. Because I added some stickers for the dragon giveaway that we did last month. I lost count of how many dragons we gave away. We gave away a lot for sure. And so I mentioned on the last couple of streams, I actually had some of them get returned because I took them to a post office and they didn't put the right description or something on the contents for what was in the box. And now I got that scene from 7, like, what's in the box? All they wrote on it was toy. And in fact, the way that they printed out the label, it actually cut off part of the label. And so all it said in the label was oi. And for some reason, Customs was like, that's not sufficient information to send something across the border to Canada or to India. And they all got returned. And so I went back to the post office today and they're like, all right, well, tell you what, you don't have to repay for all the shipping. I'm like, whew. And so they resent a bunch of boxes to Canada, one to India, and one to Africa. So those are hopefully back on the way to California to go through customs to go to their separate places wherever they will go to. So hi, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of that website and the author of that thing crawling around the background. That's my oldest. Hey Whip, good to see you in chat as well. And we got Ched Dev. Hey Ched Dev, haven't seen you in a bit. Did I get reimbursed? No, so they didn't refund it, but they didn't have to. They just rang everything up as like free of charge. Even though I went to like a different post office to try to mail them the first time. I took them back to a different post office today going, they messed up. And they're like, oh, was it an older guy with a beard? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. They mess up all the time. And as they're like typing up the addresses again, because they had to re-enter everything into the computer, found all kinds of spelling mistakes on street names and city names and stuff. Like all the zip codes and postal codes were fine. But I'm like, dang, like, you know, I'm kind of glad that it got caught. Otherwise, it would have been undeliverable if it did happen to get there. So anyway, they're all back on their way. So if you're from Canada and you're expecting a dragon from me, it's back on the way, and I sent out all the new tracking information. So need more coffee. Princess says, hi, oldest. Technically, I'm the oldest. He's the oldest of the offspring. Youngest is playing with Arduinos and LEDs and resistors and stuff. So, why keep someone at the desk if they always make mistakes? Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those like public sector jobs where it's like it's really hard to fire you once you get the job. There's like a lot of bureaucracy to try to get someone to leave that job. Unlike the tech industry where it's like, hi, today's your last day, as they tend to do. But yeah, hope you're all doing well. Yeah, just have the two. 2 is enough. 1 wasn't enough and 2 is too many. Just kidding. My mom used to say that all the time, and I'm like, 1 wasn't enough and 2 is too many. I was the youngest of the 2. I'm like, so I was the one that pushed you over the edge. That was enough, right? That was too much. Anyway, good times. Seniority, it might be a seniority thing. Anyway, they imagined, oh, it was probably so-and-so at that other office, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, they were really cool about it. They're like, yeah, we'll just put all these through and not charge you anything extra and send it all over again. So the Dragons have had a nice tour for sure, going from Denver, Colorado area to Los Angeles area, bounce back and forth around like 3 or 4 customs buildings all around LA and Carson, and then ship back to here. So and then shipped back to there and then onwards. So they're getting the world tour for sure. But I'm excited to have the rest of you get the last of those dragons from the giveaway. We're still planning through some different ideas for a giveaway in the fall. I've been playing around with these little like infinite folding fidget cubes. These have been lots of fun to print up. I've been doing these in various kinds of plastics and things like that. So this is like a really bright orange, and that's got that sparkle dark green for the hinge. And yeah, we've been making lots and lots of them. This one's actually glow in the dark green and blue with sparkly red hinges. So this one actually splits in half. You know, the bottom half is blue and the top half is green, kind of thing. So we get some pretty neat effects with the different colors of plastic, but I don't know that that's going to be the giveaway. We'll probably have to do something as big and extreme as the dragons, but we'll plan that out as we get closer to probably August, because I want to like start printing those things out in August and September, so they're all ready to go for October. So whatever that giveaway is, we'll have them all like ready to go. We might do something a little bit smaller. We might do like a piece of wall art or something that we can just like print on the printer, put it in an envelope of some kind with, you know, maybe in between some cardboard, something like that. Anyway, the glow-in-the-dark cube sounds cool. Yeah, got a handful of them, so there's that one, and then this one actually has that sparkle dark green plus the orange. And then I had another one that had where the hinges were the glow-in-the-dark. This one is all that green sparkle, and then the two-tone blue that I did a bunch of the dragons in, the blue and the aqua color as the hinges. But yeah, this one's really, really vivid. So the glow-in-the-dark green is much brighter and much more vivid than the blue, and it doesn't take very much light to charge that up. So just that couple of seconds of flashlight, and you can already see it glowing green and blue. So like just that couple of seconds. So it's a pretty neat effect for sure. And then it just folds. So I might take this to San Francisco with me next week and just give me a fidget thing in the dark when I'm in the hotel watching TV or something. I might play with the fidget cube or something. I don't know. Anyway. But hope you're all doing good. What else is going on? Had a chat with a handful of other people and invited them to come by the channel. And so I always appreciate if other folks can sort of spread the word and let them know that I'm here to help out with interview advice and career prep and stuff like that. I've reached out to a number of people from 100 Devs. I was on a couple of streams today where some folks were like, I want to get a job in tech, or I've been trying to get a job in tech and, you know, nobody's hiring or nobody's noticing my resume and so on. So what this one has helped me with lately, as he ducks off camera, no, my oldest here has done a really good job going through a bunch of my old YouTube videos and marking down timestamps for me, and we've got those automated now to the point. All the other software is done that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, where I can do like the start and stop markers in chat over here, and it's going to go through and clip out all those videos, and we got all that working. So it's all working now. So at the end of the stream, I can go in and I can record just a couple of little teaser audio things for the podcast, and then fill in all the titles and descriptions. And aside from like uploading to YouTube, everything's automated. So you'll start seeing episodes showing up on YouTube, split into different playlists like resume reviews, the job post critiques, and then going into like general Q&A, interview prep, or like the interview process, application prep, and all that kind of stuff. I've got playlists for all those on YouTube. So you can go check out my YouTube channel. It's over here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you already know that. So go check out the playlists, and hey, while you're there, like and subscribe. But yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of stuff queued up. So just going back the last month of streams that we did through May, we basically had enough short videos and podcast episodes to get us through like mid-July. And so we've got over a month of content where every day, if you go subscribe on YouTube or go subscribe to the podcast, you can do Bang Podcast and chat to get information about that. They do Bang Podcast, so you can go check that out. And there's basically going to be a podcast episode every day. Over the next couple of days, like while we were trying to get things automated with like what day do we schedule the next one, there's going to be a bit of a gap on the podcast, but YouTube's going to go out every day. And then on a day where we do something like a resume review or a job post critique, where it's not going to play well to an audio podcast, it's going to send that out as like a second video on whatever day that we're doing a regular sort of Q&A video like this, where I might be answering a question. We'll actually have like multiple videos go out that day. So it's all automated. It's all good to go. And Kisu says kudos for helping Dad. So yeah, appreciate the help very much. He spent a good amount of time just going through and like basically watching all the YouTube videos where I was going in and marking when things started, but he had to go through and listen to when it ended, so that he could actually mark down the ending timestamp. And then the automated script just goes up and picks up from there and goes, okay, it's this duration, so let me go extract that part of the video, and everything else is working from there. So now when I hit these start stop buttons and you'll see like a little marker show up in chat, that's basically me telling my bot to tell my online database to go start a new clip at this timestamp offset of when we started the stream and all that good stuff. So we're all good to go. So we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, I think I just thought of a bug. Because I start the stream early. The timestamp is based on when I start the stream, but I don't start recording the stream until that intro music finishes. So however long that song is, I need to offset all those times by 3 minutes and 52 seconds or whatever. We'll have to figure that out a little bit later. So this is our first live test today, is actually like getting through the stream, answer a couple of questions, and then go see whether it's clipping in the right spot. And if not, then I'll need to work in some kind of offset from there. So we'll figure that out. Klein Bottle, good to have you. Thanks for the first time chat. We'll use some blinky lights and some sort of greeting sound of some sort in the background. Good to have you come by. Uh-oh, the bot just crashed. It completely crashed. Wait, no it didn't. The bot's still going. Whew. All right. Scared myself there for a second. I'm like, oh no, my bot just crashed on me. But we're good. So I thought today I would go through some Discord questions. We'll get some Q&A out of the way, because I'm going to kind of, test in production. I want to test all this stuff in production and see whether it's actually going to work. But as always, if you've got questions, just like it said over here, if you've got questions, drop them in chat. If you want to ask something anonymously, you can send a message to the bot itself. So actually send a whisper over to ID 736bot, or you can just go look at these instructions here. And you can send a whisper over and it'll show up as an anonymous question. So I want people to feel safe about asking questions and stuff like that. I just realized that some of my other overlays got turned off. How do I turn all those back on? Because they were there and now they are not there. I will have to figure that out. All the most recent subscriber that you'd normally see up in the very top corner up here are missing. So I will go figure those out a little later. Normally you would see like who the last follower is or who the last subscriber is. So. But yeah, if you have questions, please drop them in chat. Happy to address those at any time as we go. If you've got a resume that you want to review, you can send over a resume. Here's instructions on where to send the resume, but ping me in chat. Let me know that you've sent a resume, and then we can do those reviews and so on if you want. There's the youngest peering over my head. Hello. So we'll go through and we'll answer some Discord questions. And yeah, if you want to ask something anonymously, you're welcome to do that. So all the questions that I'm going to be pulling from Discord have been asked anonymously or sourced anonymously in some way by me through various online channels where I get asked questions or asked to answer questions through various forums and so on. And so I've been putting a lot of those into Discord. And so I want to draw from some of those questions tonight, and then we'll kind of test out the whole, start, stop, marker times, and all that kind of stuff as we go. Alrighty. Cool, but hope everybody else is doing good. Let's go grab some questions. Oh, and if you want to join Discord, here's the Discord, and I'll put all these links down in the video description later on. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can just go check that out down below. We got all those links down there for you. For the resume reviews and Discord and the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And if you're listening, well, I guess you won't hear this part on a podcast, but if you happen to listen to the podcast will say like, hey, go check out techinterview.guide as a website. That's where all my free content is. There's no ads on any of it. I try to keep ads away as much as I can. I know when you come to Twitch, there's like a pre-roll ad that you have to sit through. That one's out of my control. But I made like a whopping $10 on ad revenue. Woohoo! But my financial disclosure page is all up to date with everything that I've made as far as a streamer up until the 10th. So I did that about a week ago. So that's all up to date as far as how much money we've made. And it came in at $1,300. So we're doing great as far as that goes. really excited to meet with that group next Friday, and I'm going to meet their executive director for a coffee and surprise them with some money. So they weren't expecting $2,000, and we're going to be giving them a little over $4,000 by the end of it all. So pretty excited about all that. So appreciate everybody's helping with raise that money. So that, well, might as well just bump that up a tiny bit more, see if we can get like a couple more subs or extra donations or private resume reviews, anything like that. So anybody else that wants to contribute, you can do Bang PayPal in my Twitch chat, or I'll put the PayPal information in the description below. Cool. Let's go grab some anonymous questions. Let's see. This is going to be a good one. So this is not quite a recurring question. I'm going to drop the text of the question in chat as well. Thanks for the dragon sticker. So we had an anonymous question come in from Discord, and we've addressed this question in various ways over the past year that we've been streaming. And it says, what do you say in a job interview when your last gig lasted for less than 6 months? So there's always the possibility that during an interview, you're going to get asked about your job history. How long were you at this job? Why did you stay as long as you did? Or why didn't you stay very long? Like, what happened? What caused you to leave, move on? What kinds of things did you do at that job? And you need to be really prepared to explain some of those things. A lot of times, though, companies won't specifically call you out on, like, why were you only at that job for 3 months? Sometimes they'll know just by looking at the resume. It's like, oh, that company just did layoffs, or, oh, that company shut down, or, oh, you know, like whatever that particular reason is. But if they don't know the company or they don't know the reason why, they're going to ask like, hey, you've only been at that job like less than a year. Like, why are you thinking about moving on already? Now, if you get reached out to by a recruiter, then they probably won't ask like, why are you thinking of leaving? Because they reached out to you, and if you respond to them, then they're probably going to skip that question, because you can just say like, hey, I'm more interested in your opportunity. But if something happened at a job, how do you explain a short duration at a job? And as I mentioned on the stream quite a bit, as long as you have a story to tell, and it's a good sort of, doesn't even have to be like a compelling story, but you have to be able to explain it in a way that either sounds like you meant to do it, or that it was no fault of your own, like why you left a job. Now, if it's something where you got terminated or you got laid off or something like that, then you need to be upfront and honest about it and just say, you know, they downsized and my position was removed. Or, you know, if you got terminated, then you could explain why. But I think you can also kind of hide the reason for being terminated by just saying like, oh, you know, it didn't work out, it decided to go in a different direction, or we agreed to part ways, or something. Like, you can word it a little bit differently. And I think, though, that if you work at a job for, let's say, 8 months, and then you're like, oh, okay, I think I'm ready to move on. If you're early in your career, I think if they ask, why are you moving on already? One way that you could explain it is, you know, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my career. This is the direction that I think I want to go. Now, there is some risk in answering a question that way, because it makes it sound like you don't really know what you want for your career yet, and you're still kind of exploring. So are you going to stay here more than 8 months? So I think you need to really sell them on, you know, I was kind of like, I thought that that's the direction that I wanted my career to go, but your company is actually a lot better aligned with my long-term career objective of fill in the blank. So your company does this particular kind of development, and that's the kind of development I want to do. Or your company has this sort of mission, and that's the kind of thing that I want to be a part of. And this is why. This is why that particular aspect of working in the industry is exciting to me. That's why I want to do that kind of work. So you have to have a good story to tell, and a lot of that story revolves around why you're going to be a good employee and why you're going to be effective at that job and why they should hire you. So as long as you have a story to tell. If it's more than a year and a half, they're probably not even going to ask why were you only there for a year. One thing that I've heard, though, and one thing that I've experienced as a mentor, is chatting with people who are new in the tech industry, and they go in and they get a job in tech. And after 6 to 8 months, they're like, all right, I think I've learned everything I need here. I want to move on and like go to another company and like learn from there. It's like you couldn't possibly have learned everything possible from everybody at that job in only 6 to 8 months. Like, that's impossible. And I've actually called people out on it, and I'm like, go ask them about this or that. Like, there are topics that you can bring up to show like there's a much deeper level of knowledge that they could be sharing about what happens at that company. And sometimes people end up staying. Sometimes though, if it's a really bad workplace, if it's toxic, if you're not getting along with coworkers, then you just got to leave, and that's okay too. But again, you can have a story to tell, but you have to be careful about telling a story that sort of makes it sound like you're bad-mouthing the employer. When you're explaining to one employer that you left because it wasn't a good environment or it wasn't a good sort of working experience, you want to be careful not to bad-mouth them, because their worry then is like, well, if you leave, like if we hire you and you leave our job, are you going to talk about us in a bad way? Like, they don't want you to speak bad about them. So there's, you have to be very careful about how you word those kinds of things. So if it just doesn't work out, you can word it in a way that lets them know that, it just wasn't a good work environment for you, or, it wasn't a good fit for you, like professionally and personally. You absorbed what you could and then realized you wanted to go in a different direction. And I think sometimes it's a little more diplomatic to say like, oh, I just wanted to go in a different direction, instead of like, oh yeah, my boss was a total jerk and like, bad-mouthed everybody and I just couldn't stand working for them and I needed to get out of there. Even if that's the truth, you generally don't want to explain things that way during an interview. You want to be a little more cautious about how you word things like that. Meloruru, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. You're finally able to check my stream. Hooray! Thanks for dropping by. It's good to see you. Cool. I'm going to go emoji that question in Discord that it has been answered. And then I'll go back later on and say, like, this is the date that I answered that question. That's something else that eventually I want to try to automate. But we'll figure out a little bit more of that as we go. I would also love to have my chat bot, like when I say I start a clip, have it grab like whatever the next thing I paste in there and make that like the title of the clip. So I've got like a little bit less typing to do later on. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I got a fair number of like automation steps kind of set up for clipping these out as smaller videos and podcast audio and so on. So if you want to take the techinterview.guide on the go, we've got a podcast, and those episodes go all the way back to last year. There was a gap between December and this week where I didn't do any podcast audio, but from December backward to, I want to say like October, there's like almost a daily podcast episode that you can go check out as well. Some of it's going to sound repetitive because we do get a lot of repeat questions, and that's totally okay. Because my opinions also change over time, and so how I answered a question a year ago is going to be a little different than how I might answer it today, along with industry changes and things like that. So, Nelaruru says in chat, my last job was super toxic, but when I interviewed for the job I got now, I just said I'm leaving for a better opportunity and growth. That brings up a good question too. I actually heard on someone else's career podcast, because I listen to other people's podcasts because I like hearing other people's perspectives too. And one of them that I listened to said that you want to treat that kind of question, like why did you leave that job? You want to treat it a little bit similarly to if you were dating somebody or you're interested in dating somebody and they say like, hey, tell me about your last girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. You don't want to like totally trash talk them, but you also kind of want to deflect a little bit and say, well, I don't want the whole conversation to be about them. I want it to be about us. And so this one piece of career advice that I heard was, if they say, why are you thinking about leaving your last job? You don't have to go in and start talking about, oh, my boss is a jerk and I hated the work and I wasn't excited about what I did. You don't have to talk about any of that. You can just say, it was a good job. I learned a lot, got to work with some really good people, but I'm really excited about this opportunity. I'm really excited about how, your company is doing such and such, and I'm pretty excited to be a part of that. So you want it to be about looking forward as opposed to looking behind. So even though they're asking a question saying, hey, go reflect on this and like share your thoughts about like what happened at that job and why you left, you really want to kind of deflect on the past and just talk about the future. Like, this is the direction I'm going now. You're also going in that direction. This is going to be a great fit. And so you kind of want to like pivot that answer back onto them about why you want that job. Very similar to how a lot of the questions they're really asking like, why should I hire you? That's the kind of question where you can pivot it back on them and say, this is why I want to work here. So being aware of how to do that, or be able to like not segue the conversation, but really sort of like turn that conversation back around on itself, to where you're sharing more about like, here's the future direction that I'm taking my career. Cool. As always, you can drop questions over in chat and we'll address those as we go. Otherwise, I'm just going to grab a whole bunch of questions out of Discord. I'm kind of testing the new clip bot. So you see over here, we got like the clip start and clip end stuff happening over here in chat. And we're just going to be grabbing little audio and video clips to put up on YouTube and the podcast later on. Mellaroo says, yep, I did that too. One person asked me what I meant by growth, and I told him I hit a ceiling in terms of there's nothing new to learn. And if there's nothing new to learn, I couldn't justify more compensation in such a small company. Yeah, the caution there that I would say, like if I were to answer a question that way, the reflection I might make is like, next time I might not say like, oh, I learned everything I possibly could there. Even if that's the case, because you don't want to come across like not that it comes across arrogant, but it really comes across like, oh, I think I've learned everything that I possibly could at that job. There's nothing more they could possibly teach me. You don't want to come across that way. You want to be a little bit careful about how you word those kinds of things, where you can say like, I learned a lot at that job, and now I'm ready for a next opportunity where I can continue to grow and learn even more. So you can phrase it in a way that doesn't sound like, oh yeah, they had nothing left to teach me. Even if that, that was the feeling that you had, that's generally not something you want to convey at an interview. You would word it a little bit differently, where you're like, I learned a lot. Like I learned so much stuff there. Now I'm looking forward to the next learning opportunity, because I love to just fill my head with knowledge and learn how to apply all these different experiences in different ways with different kinds of problems. You can word it that way. I think it comes across a little better. All right, well, let's go grab another question out of Discord. This is an interesting one, and we've covered a topic similar to this in the past. So let me go start this one. We had another question from Discord that says, how do you answer the question, what has been your biggest technical problem? I haven't worked anywhere that had very notable technical problems. The interesting thing about this question, if I kind of break it down, they're basically saying, tell me about like a really big achievement, or tell me about a really interesting sort of technical challenge that you had to overcome on the job. And this person is basically, I didn't really have an opportunity for that. How do you answer that kind of question? Part of it is understanding what they're really trying to ask. They're not necessarily getting you to go against any sort of secrets. Excuse me. Where you're saying like, oh yeah, we totally had this database crash and we lost a bunch of data. Like, you don't want to talk about that kind of stuff in an interview. Like you wouldn't say that kind of thing publicly. But they're really getting, like, the heart of this question is really, tell me about a time where you had to really work to get over a challenge. It wasn't just, oh, I need to go build a new web page, and oh, I need to go add a new table to the database. But like, what if you had to completely change the database in order to store the kind of data that you had? Or what if, you went to go add that thing and you realize like, hey, the framework needs an upgrade, and now we've got all this like technical debt that we have to address. Like, they're really asking like, tell me about a really big, maybe multi-person, multi-week kind of process thing that you had to coordinate as part of a team. And really what they're looking for there is, how did you find that opportunity to fix something? How did you fix it? How did you communicate as a team? How did you work through it together as a team? Because a lot of that stuff's not solo effort. And so they're really asking, how did you work as a team? What were some of those big things? Now, if you feel like you've worked at a job where you haven't had like a really big depth of those kinds of experiences, you can still talk about, these were big projects that we had and how we had to break them down, and how we had to work as a team with the stakeholders and the people we were doing the project for, and how we had to make sure everything was estimated well, and that we had accurate timelines and we delivered on time. You want to try to explain all of that as much as possible. But again, if you work in a kind of job where you don't have those kinds of things, it can be a little trickier to answer this question. Sometimes these questions come up from really big companies because they want to make sure that you're kind of working on the same level that they want to bring you in at. Like if they do a lot of things around scalability, they want to know that you've handled things at scale. If they need somebody who's worked with a lot of resiliency, where a system, if a system crashes, it kind of starts back up again, or you've got other things to take over, and you want to make sure, or they want to make sure that you've also done something kind of similar so that you're not walking in completely new and they've got to train you on all of this stuff from scratch. And so part of what they're listening for here is like, have you had similar kinds of experiences, maybe not to the same scale as we have exactly, but they want to know that you've at least experienced some of the same things that we have, so that if you happen to have those experiences here, it's not going to be a surprise. It's not going to like totally stress you out, that you're going to have some idea of like what to do about going to fix that. It's not always going to be possible though. You're not also going to know like the kinds of challenges that they've had necessarily, unless they've blogged about it or if they've spoken publicly about things that they've had to overcome as a company, as a team. You're not going to have a lot of that information, but some of that may come up through your company research. And as you get to know people, you can say like, hey, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had on the job that you've had to think about and talk about? People may share some of that information with you as part of that networking. If they do, now, if you get asked a question like, hey, what's the biggest challenge? Go think of something that you talked about with that guy or person and say, oh, well, when I spoke to Ian, let me back up. So you don't want to mention, oh, when I was talking to Ian said this, and so I'm going to give you an answer very similar. You don't want to bring that other person into it or what they've said. But let's say, for example, you're networking with me, and you say like, hey, Ian, tell me about a challenge at work. And I say, oh, we had this problem with a database where we dropped a bunch of data and we had to recover from backups and we had a short amount of time to do it. Later on, when you're interviewing, if they say like, hey, tell us about a challenge that you had, you could maybe relate something similar to what I said. You don't want to relay my story, of course, but if you ever had a similar thing where you're like, oh yeah, I once had a problem with a database where I dropped some data, and be like, oh yeah, we had that happen too. Now you're kind of making that connection with them. So you don't want to draw this, like, you don't want to like tell them their own story, because then they'll see right through that and they'll know you're lying. But as you're networking and getting to know people, you might pick up stories and things like that. And if you can relate similar experiences in the interview, when they interview you and they ask behavioral questions and technical questions, if you can bring up some similar content to things that you've already been talking to people at the company about, you're already kind of building that bond with them of like, oh yeah, we've had to do that too. And now there's going to feel like a stronger sort of camaraderie, and like, oh yeah, like we're definitely connected. You're going to fit in just fine because you've had those same experiences. So going back to the heart of the question is like, what happens if I haven't had those kinds of experiences? Well, what if you built a project that purposely broke? If I deal with resiliency, let's say the company where, I'm going to potentially interview you, if we deal with system uptime and making sure that everything stays online all the time, what would happen if you went and built a project and then while your project was running, you told it to shut down the database? What happens? What happens to your app? Most apps are going to completely crash and they just won't work at all. You throw 500 errors and your user has a bad experience because everything's broken. But if you were to kind of flip that project around and go, well, hey, if the database is offline, let's still give the user a good experience with a screen that says, sorry, something's not working right now, try again later, instead of just like, 500, sorry, things didn't work out. Like being able to sort of capture those errors and handle them gracefully so that your user has a good user experience is an important part of being a developer. And so if you know that my company is dealing with that kind of thing, go build a similar kind of thing into your project. Now, when you go apply for a job, even if you haven't had those kinds of experiences, and they say like, hey, tell me about some technical challenges that you've had. And you're like, in my job experience, it was pretty, easy, like walk in, do some work, walk out. But on the side, I was working on these projects where like, oh, what would happen if I took the database down? Like, how can I still give my user a good experience if something broke on the back end, or, what if I couldn't hit that API anymore? Where I'm expecting to pull up the weather and show somebody what the weather is in their area. What if I go into my environment and I change that API key so I can't access that anymore? How does that impact my end user? And, and so I built out this project and I, did this and this and this. And now you can explain what you did and why, and the process that you did to fix it, and how you gained knowledge and experience about it, even though it wasn't like done on the job professionally. you were still able to kind of mimic some of this in a personal project. That's still going to be okay to draw from as experience. As much as possible, though, when they ask these kinds of questions, you want to answer them from a professional experience point of view and not just personal projects. But I think it's still okay to say, like, hey, I didn't have any experiences like that on the job, and so I wanted to have that kind of experience and know what to go do, and so I actually did that in a project of mine, and here's the experience that I had. Hey Castile, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. Kisu19 dropped a question: if I'm applying for 2 jobs and I get both, how can I answer to the other recruiter that I'm not taking the job without burning the bridge in case the future I need to apply there again? I can share some of my own experience from doing that back in January. So let's go address that. So we had a great question show up in chat. It basically said, if I'm applying for 2 jobs and I get a job offer from both, how can I answer to one recruiter that I'm not taking their job? And the way they phrased the question is, I don't want to burn a bridge. I don't want to be super negative about it because I may want to apply there again in the future. Well, a couple of things there. First of all, if you turn down a job offer, you're not really burning a bridge. You're not going to so malign the company and be such a bad mark on the company that they're never, ever going to want to talk to you again. That's not going to happen. It would be an extremely rare event for something like that to happen. So remotely impossible to happen. It's not something that you really need to worry about. Most companies, if you get to the point where they're offering you a job offer, or they're offering you a job, they really want you to work there. And if you say no, then, it's disappointing to them, but they've probably been interviewing several other people and they're going to have other candidates that they can reach out to. At the same time, very much like the business decision that they make over who to hire and who not to hire, you're making a very similar decision, just from a different position, from a different perspective. When they've got multiple candidates applying for the job, they're trying to pick the best person for the job. When you're applying for multiple jobs, you're picking the job that's the best choice for you. And so really it's the same kind of decision. And when we say oh, you got rejected by that company, well, don't take it personally. It's a business choice. It's hard not to take it personally because you were the one affected. You didn't get the job you were hoping for. The company feels that a little bit, but at the same time, they've also got other candidates applying for that job that they've been interviewing. Now, while it may have gotten their hopes up of oh, we interviewed that person and we want to extend an offer and we hope they're going to take it. If they know that you're interviewing at other companies, then they already know there's a risk that you're not going to take the job. So they have to try to make it as enticing as possible and try to, convince you hey, we really want you on the team. You really need to take our job. At the end of the day, it's your decision. You get to choose. So in my job hunt back in December and January, December of 2021 and January 2022, I interviewed at 30 companies and I had 6 job offers. I had 1 that was verbal for some contracting work, and I had 5 written offers for full-time employment. And I basically had to go back to 4 of those full-time companies and say, no, thank you. Some of them were easier to have as conversations than others. 1, I said no thank you because their offer came in very low. 1, I said no thank you because the manager, the upper manager, and I weren't getting along. We weren't on the same page, and I didn't want to start a job where me and my manager's boss were not going to be on a good starting point. That was part of it. Part of it too is they were trying to move me into a role that I wasn't as excited about. But I basically narrowed it down to 2 jobs. I was going to take the job at Postman, or I was going to take another job where they basically were creating the role for me, where they're hey, based on your background and based on your experience, we want to create this director level role and have you come in and fill this role. I'm you're making a role for me? What? And you're going to pay me ridiculous money? What? And at the end of it, I had to decide, do I want to do more hands-on work and do the job at Postman, or do I want a director level role where I'm going to get into the people operations and hiring and managing a team? And I decided I wanted more hands-on work instead of the management. And so I had to make that call as well. Be I really enjoyed your interview process. I appreciate more than words can describe the fact that you were willing to make a role for me, interview me, and push this through and extend an offer that was incredibly generous, but I'm going to take this other job because I want to be more hands-on as opposed to the management side of it. So it's not going to burn a bridge, per the question. You're not going to burn a bridge. it's a business decision from your perspective about whether you want to take that job or not. So for starters, high five and kudos for getting multiple job offers. I think that that's fantastic. If you get to that point where you have multiple job offers, I think that that's great, and we will absolutely celebrate and applaud with you. Come by the community anytime, and we will give you all kinds of emojis and hype and high fives and as much as we can in chat, because I love to celebrate those kinds of things happening. Even if there's only one job offer, I'm still going to high five you the same as if you got 10 job offers, because at the end of it, you got a job. So congrats. But when you have to call other employers and say, like, sorry, I'm not going to take the job, you don't owe them any explanation. You don't owe them a reason. You can just say, thank you. After considering everything, I've decided not to take the job offer. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for the effort. Thank you for the interviews. You could also ask them, hey, if you want, I can refer other people. If you're still interviewing for the role, I can refer like other colleagues, if you're open to that. Sometimes they'll be like, nah, it's fine. We already had a whole bunch of candidates lined up, and you were the next one in line to get an offer. That happened at one of the companies that I got an offer from. I kind of dragged it out a little bit, like right to the very end. They're like, you need to let us know by Friday because we have somebody else waiting. Basically, they were their number 2 choice. I was their number 1 choice, and they made me the offer. And I kind of dragged it out for like a week and a half. And they're like, hey, like, we really need you to tell us because this other person is waiting to find out whether we're going to give them an offer. And if you're not taking it, we're going to give them the offer. And so out of consideration for that person, as well as the fact that that job offer came in really low, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to take it then. Go ahead and talk to that other person. So sometimes they're going to have multiple other candidates lined up, ready to go. I also answered a question a while back where someone was asking like, hey, I was interviewing with a company and they kind of put everything on pause, and then they called me up and they want to like pick up the interviews again. Like, what was with that big break? Like, they didn't address it. They're just like, hey, you still want to interview with us? Like, we're going to get you in for that next interview. Like, why was there such a big pause in there? And one of the things that I talked about in that question was they might have found somebody that they wanted to hire and they extended an offer and they were waiting for that person to say no. And then they didn't have any other candidates, and so they had to resume the interviewing with everybody else that was already queued up to be interviewed to go, okay, well, Ian's next in line. I guess we'll keep interviewing these other people that we've already been talking to. And then maybe one of those people will extend an offer to. So it's all business at the end of it. They're trying to pick the right person for the job, but you also are trying to pick the right job for your career, for the direction you want to take your career and the kinds of things you want to learn and the kinds of places that you want to grow. You are your own advocate. And so you get to choose yourself. I've often called the tech industry like a big giant choose your own adventure book. If you remember those books where at the end of a chapter, it's like, if you want your character to do this, turn to page 60. If you want your character to do that, turn to page 250, and you go to that page. And it kind of sounds like it's continuing the story from there, but it's like this whole other branch based on kind of if-else logic that we might see in programming. And the tech industry is very much like that. Like, when you finish that job, if you want a job doing this, go apply at that company. If you want a job doing that, go apply at that company. And you have that choice. You are in control of steering your career wherever you want it to go. You have the choice of where you're applying for those jobs. And in the case of multiple job offers, which job offer you want to take. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Just Jiao Wao, greetings to you as well. Hope you're doing well. Give you some blinky lights.
Welcome.
Hope you're all doing good. Who else is hanging out in chat? We're up to 20 viewers here. Let's see. What else is going on? Oh, that's why that changed. Every time I do the blinky lights, one of my screen changes, and I think that my bot crashed, but we're good. Just want to double check that everything's coming in here. Yep, everything's working fantastic. Got the clips showing up. Get those processed later on. We'll get those into YouTube and so on. So yeah. Yeah, let's see what else is going on. So Mellaroo says in chat, no shame in a secondhand offer. Yeah, that's for sure. Any offer is a good offer. Like when I was trying to decide through even some of the job offers that I turned down, like the one that I turned down because it was a low pay, another one that I turned down because of the whole management thing, is like, if that was the only job offer that I got, I would have taken the job. Like, I needed a job, so I would have taken like any of the offers that I had, I would have taken. The consultancy or the consulting job that I had as a verbal offer actually never panned out. They made a verbal offer and they're like, yep, let's talk about rates and the whole bit. And we went through all that. And they're like, okay, we'll get back to you and we'll let you know. And they never got back to me. But I still had a verbal offer at that point. And so I used that as kind of a kickstart of getting everybody else like, hey, I've got a job offer. You know, let's get this thing moving. I really would rather work for you. And that makes a big impact with recruiters when you say, I've got an offer in hand. And then once I got that first written offer, then it really sped everybody else up. So it's been quite a journey for sure. It was interesting and a very different emotional feeling having multiple job offers. You've heard me say on the stream, if you've hung out on the stream at any amount of time, you know, where I was talking about the job hunt, like my specific job hunt 6-7 months ago was, I would see a company and it's like, I want to go work at that company. I'm going to do everything it takes to convince them to hire me and I'm going to go get that job. And that panned out most of my career. While I was working at one job, I'm like, I would start researching companies and go, would I want to work there someday? Would I want to work there someday? I'd get to know people and like gradually, kind of build up that research and be like, all right, I'm going to go apply for that job and I'm going to go get that job. And most of the time I would. Didn't always work out, but most of the time I would. This was the first job where I'm just like, let's just go apply at a bunch of places and see what happens. And it was taxing. It was a drain emotionally and physically and mentally. I don't think I would do a job hunt like that again, but it was a very good experience and kind of eye-opening in a lot of ways. But yeah, I won't do another job hunt like that. Cool. What else is going on with everybody? Everyone else is kind of quiet in chat. We got a handful of people, but I think my bot is chatting more than the rest of you. So feel free to chat and say hello. Let me know what's going on. Let me do one more thing. I just want to double check something in my bot code because I have a feeling that I meant to change something in my code that I did not change in my code. And that's those automated messages. I think they're showing up way too frequently. No, they're fine. 5 minutes and 10 minutes. No, we're good. Miller says, just me and the bot hanging out. Yeah, for sure. I mean, other folks are chatting in too, but yeah, if you're lurking and you want to ask a question, please feel free to do so. If you want to ask something anonymously, you're welcome to. Here's some instructions over here. You can send a whisper over to my chat bot, and it'll show up as an anonymous question in chat, and I'm happy to take those questions at any time. And if something scrolls by and I don't see it, first off, I apologize for that. I do try to pay attention to chat as we go. But if I do miss a question, feel free to just repeat it in chat. I don't have a problem with that at all. Katsil, hey, thanks for the resub. Appreciate that. 2 months resubscribe. Very, very much appreciated. So since you're resubscribing, since you're paying for a sub, you get a logo on the wall. So send me a Twitch whisper. Let me know what you'd like 3D printed for the light panel up here behind me, and we'll get something hung up here for you. So we got Melaruru with Iron Man. We got Juggling Biohazards, which is a person juggling biohazards. We got Father Funk 3D, and we got Ethan Makes. That's actually Ethan's dad, who also runs a Twitch channel here as well. But yeah, thanks for the resubscribe. Congrats on the fundraiser. Yeah, I mean, it was all you. All you folks helped with that, like between donations and resume reviews and just being like hanging out on the stream is what generated a lot of that revenue. Just, like the pre-roll ads, like literally in the year I've been streaming, I've literally made like $10 or $11 in ads. Like ad revenue is nothing on Twitch. But like the subs and the bits and the cheers and like the PayPal donations coming in the month of May. And also had a couple come in June as well, which is fantastic. It bumped us over our goal by quite a lot. Like 30% over our goal was fantastic. I was super, super excited about that. And that's all you. And so I deeply appreciate the community for stepping in. And next week, I'm meeting these folks next Friday. So a week tomorrow, I'm going to be handing over a check for twice this amount of money. And then as soon as I hand that in, I submit some paperwork to work, and they're going to send another $1,500. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm going to give them the first check. Like I'm going to give them my money, and they're going to be like, wow. And then I'm going to like, by the way, once I go back to work and fill out this paperwork, they're also going to send you $1,500. And I kind of want to see if I can like get a picture of their face when they're like, kind of thing. I think it'd be a fun moment to capture. We'll see. We'll see whether that goes. See how that goes, I guess. Goka Gokwa. Not sure how you pronounce your username. Let me know in chat how you pronounce your username. I don't remember who turned me onto your stuff, but thanks for doing it. I catch your YouTube videos when I can. I appreciate that. Thanks for dropping by the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers over there. They like YouTube unlocks a bunch more stuff once you hit 1,000 subs. I think I'm up to about 700 or so. I got slightly more followers on Twitch than I have as subscribers on YouTube. And so if you're following me here on Twitch, please go subscribe to me over on YouTube as well, if you can. And it'll notify you about like the little clips and stuff. So the little clips are going to go out every day. Some days you might have 2 clips, like if we do a resume review or if we do a job post critique, things like that. Those videos are also going to show up along with the short little clips. Now the short little clips are just like the little 5-10 minute segments of where I actually answer a question for someone in chat. And then the podcast is also that same clip, but just the audio. So the podcast, you can go find out if you do Bang Podcast in the chat. You'll go find out about that. I'll put the link down in the description down below. And we'll be clipping out the audio for those, for people that just want to listen to audio only. And so the job post reviews, like the job post critiques and resume reviews, don't make sense to be on the podcast because they're very visual, where I'm like, trying to explain like, oh yeah, see how these things don't line up? Well, that doesn't make sense to somebody that's just listening to the audio. And so I wanted to be sensitive to different learning styles and different kinds of like attention spans and different kinds of attention needs of people. And some people don't have time to sit down and watch a whole video. And so that's why I wanted to clip them into smaller portions. And then some people can't have video running. Some people don't want just audio. And so I wanted to have this content out in a multitude of ways that would help people out. And so that's why I went through the effort of writing up all this software to kind of split all this stuff up. And you see all those little markers showing up in chat of like starting and stopping a clip. And that's just notifying my bot to go write some information into a database to go find all those offsets then for when to like start clipping those things out of the video. So good times, good times. Needs More Coffee asked a question. Are those date entry customer service work from home jobs worth giving a try? I want to get out of working 6 days a week in a factory, but I've run into some scams when applying online for work from home jobs. It's a good question. Yeah, let me go address that one because I got thoughts. I said it right, Gokwa? Okay, Gokwa. Awesome. Well, let's go grab this question from Need More Coffee Princess. So great question in chat came up from Need More Coffee Princess, and I love your username, by the way. I definitely need more coffee. I bought a lot of coffee for this week. This week was incredibly busy at work, but let's dive into this question. So the question was, let me back up and I'll kind of re-timestamp this. So we had a question in chat that said, are those data entry and customer service work from home jobs worth giving a try? I want to get out of working 6 days a week at a factory, but I've run into some scams when applying online for work from home types of jobs. And yeah, a lot of those are going to be scams because somebody's trying to make money and they'll be like, oh, just buy this training program and then you can do all this stuff working from home. And really they're making money building these training programs that don't really train you for things. There are legitimate companies out there that literally want you to like sit down and type things out, but if they've already got the content to send to you, you'd think it would be easy enough for them to just like scan into a computer or something like that. So, but I have seen some legitimate like transcription types of jobs where it's like medical transcriptions, or, something along those lines where they're sending you like something on a cassette or a CD, like some sort of audio file, like maybe an MP3 file. And they literally just want you to type out everything word for word that was said. The problem with some of those is if you don't come from a medical background, you're not necessarily going to understand the context of it, and you may not know how to spell things. And so you may have questions about how to do some of that stuff. There are legit online things, though, where you can, for example, read an audiobook. So you send in samples of your voice and you send in samples of you reading, and they're really listening for the dynamics in your voice and how well you can talk in a microphone and how good your volume is and whether you've got background noise and all this kind of stuff, where you literally, like, they'll give you a book and you literally just read the book and record segments of it and they pay you at the end of it. There are legitimate companies out there that are looking for that kind of stuff. Very similar to how I clip these little videos and audio samples out. People have different ways and needs of consuming content. Not everybody can actually sit down and read a physical book. They need an audiobook. And so there are legitimate companies out there for, hey, help us by reading this where it doesn't sound like a robotic voice reading the same phrase and no inflection in your voice. Like, you know, we can totally automate that kind of stuff with like robots, and you get a little bit of inflection with AI and things like that if you have any of these automated home things like Alexa and so on. Then you kind of get an idea of like what those robotic voices can do. But it's not the same as a real human voice that knows when to pause and knows what to say. And, you know, when you ask a question, you can do the little uptick on the last sort of syllable. Like, am I really asking a question? And those kinds of things. Like, we can hear a lot more in human voice than what we can easily program into these robotic voices. So there are legit jobs out there for those kinds of things. How to screen which ones are legitimate or not is a little trickier. And so you have to really pay attention to online reviews, and you have to really do a lot of due diligence and research into, is this a real company? Like, A, is it a real company? B, how big is the company? Do people legitimately work there? Like, go see if they're on LinkedIn. Go check Better Business Bureau. Like, go find sites like that to do due diligence and research on, is this a real company? Is this a real job? Like, is there, you know, are they just trying to collect, you know, voice samples or something like that? There are probably always going to be scammers out there trying to find a way to use your data or use your voice and manipulate things in weird and funny ways to do whatever, malicious things. But there are legitimate companies out there. It's just a little bit harder to screen like which ones are real and which ones are not. Some of it's going to come from experience of like, you know, I know a guy who did this thing and so I trust their opinion, so I'm going to go try apply for that thing too. I would say if you've got questions about it, ask around. Ask other people to look into it for you as well. So do your own research, but then find other people that maybe have like a free afternoon or, you know, a bit of free time on a weekend or something, and be like, hey, could you help me out? Could you go research this company and tell me whether you think it's legit? You know, or ask people that you know whether, you know, any of them are doing these take home things or you know, work from home kinds of jobs, and see what they say, and see if you can find out from your own sort of network or circle of people, do they know anybody in a circle of people that can evaluate and help you evaluate whether these jobs are real? Because there are real jobs out there for that exact kind of thing, like data entry and you know, reading content and so on, where you can make money. Like the audiobook one that I've seen most on ads, they're like, oh, you know, you do this thing and they'll pay you like $200, $300, $400 to read a whole book, because they're going to turn around, they're going to sell that audiobook for like 10, 20 bucks a shot, and they only need to sell a couple of copies to recoup that money, and then everything after that is profit for them. So there are legitimate businesses out there trying to do that. But they also need to know, like, do you actually have a good speaking voice? Can you actually read well? Can you enunciate well? All of those play a factor in maybe how much you get paid or whether they even want to pay you for doing it. What you don't want to do is spend all this time, like 20 hours, whatever, reading a book, like transcribing a book, and then you send it in. They're like, nah, it wasn't good enough quality. We're not going to pay you. You know, meanwhile, you don't know whether they're actually using it and selling it, you know, or not. So there are going to be like good review sites out there to look into those kinds of things. So do your diligence and look them up on Google, look them up on places like Better Business Bureau, see if they're an actual business on LinkedIn or whatever, and like see if it's legit. I think that it's going to be important to do that. Castile says in chat, first off, if anybody ever asks you to pay money during an interview process, like, it's a scam. I agree. You should never have to pay to get introduced to something like that. Castile went on to say, my sister almost got scammed. She was looking for a dev job. Someone had her send like $100 to buy some equipment you would need, and she'd get reimbursed. And I told her it was not for real. And if they try to rush you, yeah, it's another sign. Yeah, if they put a lot of like high pressure on you to do something or do something in a hurry or whatever, it could be that they're trying to like fool you or trick you into doing something that you wouldn't typically do if you had time to actually do the research. So do your homework on it. I think that will be really vital. But yeah, I appreciate the question. There are work from home types of jobs where they can do things like data entry or customer service calls and things like that, where you can do them from home. I actually saw a video just this week. I think it was the video made it all its way to TikTok, where somebody was like doing customer service and they were patching everything through their cell phone. And so they went to Starbucks, and they're in the drive-thru at Starbucks recording themselves talking to a customer on the phone and trying to order coffee, and like there's this whole interaction. So there are legit like customer service types of things where they'll just route a phone call into your cell phone. When it rings, you answer. And you know, those kinds of companies, they'll train you. Like you don't have to pay for any of that training. Like they will, you know, they'll give you all the training material if it's a legit company. If they say, well, you have to pay us like $500 for the material and then we'll send it, then it's probably a scam. But there are legit companies out there that will pay you and train you to go through the training to actually be like a real customer service rep or a support rep of some kind, and do it from home or wherever you are, as long as you can access a telephone, you know, or cell phone or something like that. It's a legit kind of business, but you have to do your diligence on it. Epicat says, I'm glad you're on right now. I have an interview question. Well, I'm here every Thursday. Is it worth getting into Y Combinator? Ooh. For friends? Trying to think of how to pronounce names with vowels. I tend to drift towards like the leak code enunciations of those. So for friends, is it worth getting into Y Combinator? I mean, some of those incubators are very good programs. I've worked at 3 companies from Techstars. I have a lot of faith in Techstars and who they draw from as mentors. So I would happily go work for another Techstars company in the future. I've never actually worked at a Y Combinator company, so I don't have a good experience about Y Combinator themselves. But a lot of incubators are kind of the same as far as like the advice that they give. Some of them give you more like seed money to start up and so on. Some of them are more like you have to like practically build out the whole thing and have customers before they'll even accept you into their program. Some of them will take you right from ground roots, like all I have is an idea, you know, and maybe like one technical founder kind of thing, and they'll take you. But it really depends on the incubator and what their needs are. But there are a lot of incubators out there too, and some of them may also not be a scam, but some of them are going to be more effective than others. And so you'll definitely want to pay attention to which ones give good mentoring. And so I would ask other people who are part of Y Combinator what their experience has been. Like, was it, and you know, if they have a successful exit, of course they're going to say like, yeah, it was good. But what you want to do is you want to find people that have gone through Y Combinator and maybe it didn't work out. You want to find out from them too, like what are the bad sides? Because there's always going to be good sides and bad sides to everything in life. And so whether you get into like a Y Combinator or some sort of incubator for a startup idea, there are going to be people out there that have had good experiences and bad experiences, and you need to hear from both of them. So you're not just hearing the good news and the good reviews and the 5-star ratings and things like that. You have to find objective information, the same as everything else. So everything else that we've just talked about on the stream as well. There are going to be good and bad points, and you need to find all of those so that you can make an informed decision. You know, whether you're researching a company for applying for a job or looking into like these stay-at-home, you know, work from home kinds of scenarios, you need to do your homework on it and find people that have had both good and bad experiences. Now, the bad experiences tend to be like, you know, they sound overly dramatic and like overly, you know, disproportionate as far as like, you know, the bad experience, you know, far outweighing good experiences. But you know, there are going to be some, you know, seeds of truth in some of that as well. So I would say try to reach out to people. Now, you're asking like Fang Company or Y Combinator. Those are completely different things, because you're asking, do I go become an employee at a Fang Company, or do I go through Y Combinator and start my own company? So Y Combinator is like, you've got a startup idea and you've got a business foundation and you want mentorship to actually turn that into a full-blown company. That's a completely different type of work than, like, as far as like founding a startup, than it is being an employee for somebody else. Those are very, very different things, and I can't advise you one way or the other because I don't know what your career aspirations are. RC Maniac, good to see you in chat. Hello. Got distracted by some code. That's okay. I get distracted by code all the time. Just having a look through here. Need More Coffee Princess says you're going to make sure to take some time to study. Yeah, for sure. Join a club that teaches you development. Like 100 Devs is a great group. If Mellaruru is still around, I'm sure they can give you some insight into 100 Devs. I think 100 Devs is doing a great job training people up and helping them get through the curriculum and so on. I've tried reaching out to them about being a mentor, and they're just not getting back to me. So if anybody here is part of 100 devs, do me a favor and like ping the admins and say, hey, this Ian guy really wants to be a mentor. For some reason they kicked me out of their Discord. I don't know why. All I did was I posted one time like, hey, I do resume reviews on my live stream, and next thing I know, I'm like kicked off their Discord. But I was legit there to help people out. Maybe they kicked me out because I wasn't actually a student. I don't know, but I would love to hear from anybody over at 100 Devs, because I'd love to help people out. I mean, that's what my whole stream is about, is just helping people out, especially on the career side of it. I know 100 Devs puts a lot of emphasis on like, go find a client, go build a website, get paid for that, and go be a freelance developer kind of thing. But I think a lot of what they train you to do, you can go get full-time jobs as well. And I would love to have folks come on the stream as a guest on the stream and share some of those experiences about like, what was it like finding that client? If you're willing to be transparent about like, what did you get paid for building that site? Was it like hundreds of dollars? Was it thousands of dollars? Like, what was that experience like? How long did it take you to actually get paid? Like all that kind of stuff. Or if you turned around and got a full-time job, it would be nice to hear from folks like that too. But yeah, I'm just here to help people out. So Mellaroo, if you can like ping the people and like poke the people over there and just say, hey, this Ian guy really wants to help out, I would appreciate any help and assistance on that. So Epicat, you had an interview question, possibility of system design questions during an entry-level interview. Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely dig into some system design stuff. Let me go get one resource in preparation for that, because I got resources. I'm going to give you some of my favorite resources for practicing system design, and I'll copy those in chat as I answer that. Mellaroo is definitely on board with 100 devs for sure. Hey, Taka149, good to have you dropping by. Taka148 was here earlier and said all kinds of nasty things about you, so you might want to have a chat with them. But we all know that Taka149 is cool, so welcome on in. Good to see you. We'll give you some cheers. Thanks for dropping by. Mellaroo says, yeah, it's considered self-promo. Leon is hard to get a hold of. I mean, I sent him a Twitter message saying like, hey, I appreciate everything you do with 100 devs, and he wrote back, he goes, thanks. That was it. I should have asked him in the same message like, hey, can I also mentor? But I got like 3 seconds of his attention one time. But yeah, if you could just reach out to the mods and just say like, hey, this guy wants to get involved with 100 devs as part of the live stream group and help people out. Whether it's with coding or the career mentorship, like I'd love to help out with that. So if you could help me out there, I'd appreciate it. Because I tried emailing him as well and I never got a response at all to the email. Epicat said, I read somewhere that system design is usually for senior devs. I'm not sure if I should study that. Yeah, we'll definitely dive in on this one next, for sure. So I'm going to like recap both parts of that question and we'll go from there. So Epicat asked a great question in chat. They said, company recommended, let me back up from there. So Epicat asked a question in chat, what's the possibility of system design questions during an entry-level interview? Followed up saying the company recommended certain chapters to review from cracking the coding interview. Recommended system design, but not search and sorting algorithms. And then I guess I read somewhere that system design is usually for senior devs and up. I'm not sure if I should study it. Well, for starters, I would say there's no harm in studying new things, regardless of whether you're going to need it for the interview. But certainly you want to focus as much of your attention as possible on what you actually need for the interview. If they've hinted that you need system design, or if they've given you specific chapters to go read, then you should definitely go read those and study those and be prepared to answer questions. As far as system design goes, I've said on the stream in the past, and as a teacher, I would tell students this, that when it comes to system design, I think about how Bob Ross paints a painting. And when you're asked about system design, like go design an object-oriented vending machine, or how would you design an elevator control system? Those are all kind of parts of system design. Like how are you designing that entire system, start to front, or start to end, front to back, top to bottom, all the different dimensions that you can think of. How would you design that? And so going back to the Bob Ross analogy, when Bob Ross paints a painting, he doesn't start with a happy little tree. he starts with a very broad idea of what this picture is going to be about. There's a sky and maybe there's some fluffy clouds, and then there's usually a mountain of some kind, and then like foreground mountains, and then maybe some trees, or like the foothills, he'll like paint in some trees, and he kind of like gradually builds it layer by layer, and then eventually paints in the happy little trees and the little bushes and the little rocks, and if he puts a little squirrel on the fence, or paints out the cabin or whatever to get the high detail points. And so I've posted a couple of links over here in the Twitch chat for those listening to the podcast audio. I'll put them in the description later, down below the podcast episode. And if you're on YouTube, they'll be down below in the description as well. When it comes to system design, you want to do something similar. So if they say, well, go design an elevator control system. From a system design point of view, a lot of people think, okay, well, what's the interface? What are the buttons? Because that's what's controlling the elevator, right? But the system design, like if you take a step back and you think about it, it's like, well, how many floors are there in the building? Like how many elevator cars do I actually need to go up and down? Like what if it's a 1-story building? Like I don't really have anything to design. If it's a 2-story building, okay, I probably only need 1 elevator. In fact, if it's, only a couple of floors and there's only a couple of, apartments or units or whatever per floor, I probably still only need 1 elevator. So you can start asking questions about the needs of the users as far as like how big does that floor need to be before you add another elevator, and then how do you add that into your design. And so you have to really take like a really high level approach on what is it that I need to build here, and think about that big picture. Like Bob Ross is painting the sky with the clouds and the mountain. You kind of need to take a similar approach of, okay, what kind of elevator is it going to be? Is it a multi-floor building? How many people are on each floor? Is it like an office building? Because maybe I want to design this out in a way that in the morning, all of the elevator cars are down on the ground floor because everybody's going to be going up to the office in the morning. And then maybe at the end of the day, I'll put all the elevator cars at the top so that, as people are leaving, the elevator's like right there. So they can, like, they don't have to wait for the elevator to come all the way up to the top floor just to take them back down to the bottom floor. You can design that kind of stuff into the algorithm of how you want to build this out. But thinking about that algorithm is a little bit premature. You still have to design the whole thing of like, what is the overall user experience going to be, not just what's the button that they hit, and how does that button actually like call the elevator. You've got electricity and power and maybe a hydraulic lift or maybe a counterbalance weight or whatever that actually moves the elevator. Like you have to design those kinds of things. And so that's kind of where Bob Ross is gradually adding those layers of detail. And you want to take system design in a similar approach. You want to take system design and like, what are all the different things that I'm going to need to build to go, design this whole thing out. Another illustration that I'll use that's going to work really great for people that are watching live or watching on YouTube. In the background, I have a Lego TIE Fighter that I assembled, and I've got the assembly book here with me. And this assembly book is basically the system design of here's how to take all these bits and pieces and put them together in a model of some sort. And that's really what system design is going to be like in a technical interview. Now, going back to the kind of the heart of the question from Epicat is this only for senior level devs? No. Senior devs are going to have a lot more experience. And, when you're talking about building out a whole, like, go design an elevator system, they're the ones that are going to be thinking about all those little edge cases on, like, should I put the elevator at the top floor at the end of the day to bring people down and start them at the bottom in the morning to take them up? Those are things that, like, a senior dev with a lot of experience of, oh, I've built systems like this. Do you want me to account for this? How about this? Like, oh, I once had an experience with this. Do you want me to build that into the system as well? And you can have a lot more of those conversations where as an entry-level dev, you can still plan those kind of the basic building blocks of this is what I need to go do without knowing and having the experience around all of the other things that a senior level dev might be able to do. Now, the links that I added over in chat that are going to be down below in the description, they are some of my favorite resources about how to think about the different blocks of things that you can build into a system. So the first link was on a GitHub link, and I don't know whether the person pronounces their name Donnie Martin or Don Martin, but that system design primer is one of the best ones that I've seen as far as outlining and explaining. These are all the different kinds of components that you can build into a system and what they're used for and how this part will affect scalability, and this part affects resiliency, and this part just affects overall performance, and this part can do this and that and caching or whatever. they go into a lot of really good detail. The second link narrows in a little bit more on just system design interviews, and it's a YouTube channel where you can go watch some system design interviews and really see how other people break these kinds of things down. For me, a whiteboard is really ideal. Some sort of drawing tool where you can literally draw out the blocks of, I've got this piece that communicates with this piece, and this is what that communication back and forth is going to look like. Again, you want to design all of this stuff out as much as possible before you actually go implement it. You want to design everything you can before you go implement anything at all. So even though you know, like, okay, well, I've got a front end app that's going to talk to a middleware app that's going to talk to some backend API, and it's also going to talk to a database. Like, okay, well, back and forth between the database, I need to send and receive data in this specific format. Between the front end and back end, I need to send it in this kind of format. That's getting too granular. That's getting into the happy little tree. What you want to say is there's communication back and forth. I'm going to get into more detail on that as we go. So when you're going through a system design interview, no matter what level you are, if you're entry level or if you're senior level, when you're going through that interview, you want to focus on the really high level parts and then gradually shift in on giving a little more insight and information on each of the components, and then zoom in again on each of the components. I've done a lot of system design interviews where, you know, like I mentioned, you mention an elevator and they're like, oh, here's this panel of buttons that go all to the different floors. Or the vending machine, they think about, okay, well, I got to put money in, and then there's the panel of buttons, and you're focusing on the end user interface, but you're losing track of the fact that you need a big metal box to put all the snacks in, and you need little motors to turn the thing inside that actually, you know, gets the snack to the front and drops it, you know, in front of the door that you open. You're forgetting that it might need lights, it might need cooling or heating. Like, there's so many more components that go into the vending machine than just the user interface panel of the buttons and the money exchange. And so if you remember to treat system design like Bob Ross paints a painting, and gradually getting into more and more detail over time as it goes, to where you're not hyper focusing on the happy little tree too early. The exact detail of, like, how am I actually going to design that panel of buttons, that's like one of the last things you need to worry about when you're building the vending machine or building an elevator. Like, that part of the user experience is like one of the last things that you're actually going to build. You have to think about all these other things that need to go into play. Like with the elevator, if I'm already on my way up and someone else hits the call button to also go up, if I'm not at their floor yet, I need to stop and pick them up and continue to go up so that they don't have to wait as long. That's the overall user experience. That has nothing to do with the, you know, row of buttons on the inside of the elevator, but it does have to do with the overall user experience. So these are the kinds of things that you need to think about with system design. Just start really high level and gradually, like, build out all of the like just really big boxes of, I need a component that does this, I need a component that does this, I need a component that does this. This is, you know, I know that this has to communicate with this piece, this has to communicate with this piece. They're all going to talk back to a database, and so there's going to be some kind of communication layer there. Now I'm going to go in on just a little more detail on each of those. And now I'm going to go into a little more detail on each of those. Now, at some point you can ask the interviewer, hey, do you want me to focus in on just one part of this? Or do you want me to keep going into a little bit of detail on all the things? Is there like a particular part of this that you really want me to just go really deep on this portion of? Or do you want me to keep describing all the different components and how I'm gradually going to get into more detail? Now, at some point, you know, as that entry-level dev, as Epicat asked, you may not have experience, and you go, well, I know I need a database, and I know that I can make some tables, but I don't know how to optimize a database. I don't know how to make that database super resilient and, you know, do database backups. Like, I don't know how to do any of that. That's okay. If that's as deep as you can go on that level of detail, that's fine. You can go into even more detail on the code aspect and things where you do have experience. And that's part of what we're trying to evaluate through asking these kinds of questions as well, is which of these kinds of components do you even know about? And now that we know that you know about them, how much do you know about them? And if that amount of what we call depth of knowledge isn't very deep, that's okay. My job is just to evaluate what you do know, how much of that you actually know, and then figure out whether that fits in the needs that we have on our team. And so you don't have to know everything about everything. You don't have to have super deep knowledge on everything about everything. That's their job, is to ask you those questions and kind of gain enough insight and information to go, yeah, okay, yeah, you've kind of covered what we're looking for this question. Let's move on. And so you can always ask them, like, are there certain components that you want me to speak to? Or you can just say, you know what, I know that I would need to do caching here so that I can look things up a little bit faster on the way back and forth to the database, but I've never actually implemented that. So I don't know what that mechanism would actually look like in code. But over here, where I'm actually writing the front end interface, like I can go into another level of detail on that if you want me to, and ask them how much detail you want on each of those components, and let them drive out that part of the conversation. But yeah, if you start at the really high level view and gradually hone in on the detail, that'll probably be the best approach for system design. Let me go back to chat here a little bit. Hey, B-Whiskey, good to see you. Your dragon, as far as I know, made it to India, but I don't know where it is from there. I can only track it like so far, so hopefully it arrives. But V-Whiskey says, the only way to reach Leon is via mod mail and Discord. He never even looks at his mail. He said it publicly. Interesting, okay. Maybe you use social media. Yeah, so I did send him a message on Twitter, and he did reply to that, but it was just like, hey, thanks for all you do, and he's like, thanks. So yeah, I'll try to send another message on Twitter and see if he'll notice that. What's your level of availability on your Discord for tech career help? So my Discord's open. You can ask questions there anytime. I try to pay attention to it as much as possible. I do work full time, so during the day I have to pay attention to like my work duties. And next week I'm off site, so I'm basically going to be in San Francisco with the rest of my team. I currently live in Colorado, and so we're all flying into San Francisco, and we have like several days of events and stuff going on, and then Thursday's like a whole day workshop that we're doing. So I'm going to be offline most of next week as far as like helping other people out. So I'm probably not going to stream next Thursday, because Thursday is going to be like an all-day event that leads up into like a dinner kind of thing. And so I'm probably not going to stream next week. If I do stream next week, it's going to be from the hotel, and it's going to be really late. So right now I'm thinking I'm probably not going to stream next week, next Thursday. I'm still going to stream Sunday, but then Sunday I'm packing. Monday I fly to San Francisco, and I'll be back, after the weekend. So I'll stream again the following Sunday, but I probably won't be streaming next Thursday. I'll be offline for that. Morph CS, first time chat. Thanks for dropping by. Give you some blinky lights and some sort of cheering hello. I need to like have it pop up and tell me like what it played. 'Cause sometimes it's just like the little trumpet, or sometimes it's a cheer. Sometimes it's just clapping or whatever. So hopefully it's a happy sound on your end. But thanks for dropping by. Appreciate that. RC Maniac says in chat, the only interview that I got asked to buy something was Amazon, who said the system design portion would best be done with a small handheld whiteboard to hold to the webcam. I bought mine from Walmart, and then the interview went, "No, we can just talk." I mean, there are digital tools, but it's really hard to draw things with a mouse, and unless you've got a tablet, it's really hard to draw things online. But I get with remote interviews, there's not a good way to do that kind of thing. But me personally, I really like drawing things out when I'm talking about system design, so I can I can show them like the high level, kinds of points, and then gradually break those boxes into multiple boxes. Like, okay, now that we know that this is going to be a middleware piece, here's how I break that middleware into like different components, like the API layer, the facade layer, or whatever. And then let's talk about actually building out the API and all the different things that's going to need, or consuming other APIs and where those are coming from, and then we can get into the communication layer of like what's that actual payload of data going to look like back and forth. But again, that's getting down into the nitty gritty of the user interface, and at that point you're kind of beyond the system design, because at that point you're talking implementation details and not system design anymore. At that point you've effectively finished your design, and you're starting on implementation detail at that point. Let's see what else we got. So Taka 149 was asking RC Maniac, did the interview go well, at least with that? Is the tech fundraiser up to date? It is up to date. Yeah. So we are at $1,300. I mean, I didn't check if there were any other donations coming in today. I had kind of another couple of busy days at work this week, leading up for the stuff I'm doing next week. So I think I last updated it on the 10th. If you go check out !money, there's a link to the website for my financial transparency, and I think I put the date on there of when I last updated. I think it was around the 10th, so maybe a week ago. But yeah, it's all up to date as far as I know. So yeah, pretty stoked about that. I'm pretty excited about meeting with them next week. So that'll be next Friday. I'm gonna give away all this money plus that much again. So I'll be giving them a check for $2,600, $2,607.20. So, and then my employer is also going to kick in another $1,500. So really excited about that. And I'm hoping over that coffee conversation that I can talk to them about, like, can this go into a scholarship fund of some kind to help people out? And then, see if I can help out, or, do some live streaming for them, or do any kind of webinars, like volunteer my time to help with like resume reviews or other mentorship around job coaching and stuff like that. But yeah, V-Whiskey, you're asking like, what's my availability? I mean, I know that other people are involved with 100 devs and doing live streaming. And so what I'd love to do is like get into that 100 devs like live stream group and say like, hey, I live stream, but mainly around the career development side of things and like getting jobs and like, being freelance contractor kind of stuff, and share my experiences there. If they want me to get into code, I can do coding too. I just don't typically live stream about code, but if it's something that they need help with or want help with, I'd be open to that too. I just need to actually talk to somebody there because they kind of shut me off their Discord. Let's see what else. You should send some money. I mean, it's up to you. You don't have to. I'm not ever going to pressure anybody into like, you should give. But yeah, if you want to contribute to the tech fundraiser, you got a couple of days left because I fly out on Monday. So my preference is to write the check on Monday as I'm like walking out the door and take that with me. So, but if other money happens to come in between now and then I will update accordingly. So am I a web dev? I have been, yes. Most of my career has been in I've done development professionally now for 26 years. But I've also had jobs as a manager, as a director. Right now I'm doing what we call developer relations, which is kind of like a training, content creation, like conference talk, kind of, workshop kind of job. But I still code almost every day. Like if you go look at my GitHub, I've still got like tons of contributions going on all the time because I'm coding here at home. On all these automation things, like you see the start and stop, clip start, clip end, all that's going into an Airtable. So I basically spent the last couple of weeks on, my downtime figuring out, okay, how do I write stuff into Airtable? How do I read it back out of Airtable? How do I do, the equivalent of like where clauses to like go find data, where this matches or that matches or doesn't match. And then building all that into all these Python scripts that are basically going to go take all these timestamps that I'm marking over here in the chat, and then after this is over, it takes this whole recording, which is an hour and a half long right now, and it's going to go and slice it up at all of those timestamps, and it's going to extract each of those portions of video, and then it makes a short video out of that for YouTube, and it builds a little thumbnail for me. And then it takes the audio of that as well and extracts that and puts it over on an audio podcast. And you can go find that on Spotify, Apple, Pandora. I think it's on Google Podcasts. So Podbean. So I upload it to Podbean, and Podbean kind of syndicates it out from there. And so I've set up a whole bunch to go through Podbean. So pretty much any like major podcast catalog, if you search for Tech Interview Guide podcast, you'll probably find the podcast. At least I hope you do. And if you find it, please like subscribe to it and like a couple of episodes. That'll help their algorithms, like help to promote it and help other people find it and so on. So I'd appreciate any help there. If you happen to listen to the podcast, feel free to like throw some feedback on the podcast. Or if you've got feedback on it, feel free to reach out to. I'm always curious about like audio levels and things like that. Like, when the podcast starts, I do a little teaser like, should you get a job as a freelancer or as a full-time employee? And then it goes into like, hi, I'm Ian. I'm the author of Tech Interview Guide, and here's the episode. And then it goes into the episode audio, and then it closes with like, hey, go check out the website, lots of free stuff kind of thing. Not that fast, but that's kind of like, that's basically what my software is doing, is it's splicing all these things together just based on that little audio extract that it makes out of this much bigger video. And so I've been coding all of this stuff up. And so I've got it to where it goes through and it slices everything, makes all the videos, and then I just drag them all into YouTube, drop them, go in and schedule them all. Same thing with the podcast. Although for the podcast, I've got it sort of set up right now where it'll go in and sort of randomly assign dates on these. And then it'll it finds the same portion for YouTube, and it uploads the podcast and the YouTube video for the same day. And so, like, if this were a clip right now and I released it next Thursday, it would release the video of it on YouTube and the podcast audio of the exact same clip on the same day. So I've got the scheduling algorithm written up. That part works. The only thing that I don't have is automating actually uploading things to YouTube and setting the titles and the descriptions and stuff like that. That's the next thing. I don't know whether I'm going to have time to do that before my trip, and I'm definitely not going to have time to do it on my trip next week. So that'll probably wait till I get back. But in the meantime, I've got stuff queued up into July right now, like mid-July, like the 18th of July or something like that. So every day you're going to see stuff. If you go check out YouTube or go find out the podcast and go subscribe to the podcast, you're going to get episodes pretty much every day through at least mid-July. And then every time I stream, I'm going to be extracting these questions, and those are just going to keep adding to those. And then I'm adding them onto playlists. And so if you want to go hear a playlist on YouTube of, just go show me questions about the interview process, go show me questions about just general Q&A or the application process, I've got playlists set up for those. And then I've got a playlist for resume reviews and a playlist for the job post critiques, because those have been really fun. And so you can like, if you just want to go dive in on some resume reviews, those are all going to be separated now. And you'll have a playlist of those that you can go check out as well. Let's see, what else is going on? Demas X00. I used to live in San Dimas, so I want to pronounce it Demas. But Demas X, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Sorry that I missed that a few minutes ago. But I always appreciate folks dropping by and saying hi. Epicat says it's Thursday night Twitch night or something. So many people streaming right now. Yeah, a lot of us do overlap, and it's disappointing because there are a lot of people that I want to go hang out with too. But it was tricky. So when I first wanted to start streaming, I was streaming on a different night than Jonan Scheffler. Jonan's channel is called The Jonan Show, and he had a whole bunch of folks on, and they would talk about like career prep and just coding, just general, like, come ask us anything about computers. It was just kind of like an open tech Q&A kind of thing, but they focused a lot on just the career aspect. And I'm like, I want to focus on just the career stuff, but I didn't want to do it on a night that conflict with Jonan, so I picked a different night. So that's why I went with Thursdays. But then I also wanted to do one on the weekend in case people couldn't be there during a weekday evening. And so I decided to do on Sundays as well. And then I changed the time from Sunday evening to Sunday morning just to help accommodate people in different countries like V-Whiskey, who can now come hang out with us live. Although right now it's, V-Whiskey's like 11 and a half hours or 12 hours ahead of us, or at least ahead of where I am in Colorado. And so it's like super early in the morning over there for V-Whiskey. So I appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. Hope you're geared up for a great day over there. But yeah, I wanted to stream at a different time on Sunday because I had some people from the UK reach out and like Scrimba and so on. I've been on their podcast a couple of times recently, and they're like, hey, we want to come hang out, or, I asked some of them to be on the stream, and like, well, we can't if it's in the evening your time, because it's like 2 a.m. for them. And so I was trying to figure out a way of like, okay, well, let's shift that time on Sunday to be earlier in the day so that other folks can be involved. So I'm hoping to schedule some of them to be on my stream, since I've done a couple with them now. I'm hoping to reciprocate and have some of them come in and just share their ideas and perspectives. Maybe talk a little bit about the differences between U.S. hiring and hiring in the UK and things like that. I think that'll kind of give some interesting perspective from kind of that sort of worldwide sort of perspectives on things. A bunch of people are West Coast and stream after dinner. Yeah, it ends up being after 6 for sure. Let's see, did I miss anything else in chat? Taka asked in chat, what do you think about the current state of the job market? A lot of companies have started hiring freezes. Yeah, I actually just recently chatted about that, so I won't clip this one out because I recently did a clip on that. Like Facebook did their first hiring freeze, I think, ever a couple of weeks ago. I think they didn't have good quarterly results, and so they put a freeze on hiring. Other tech companies started laying people off, and they're like, oh no, look at everything that's happening. Like, there were like 15,000 to 17,000 jobs lost in May. And there's a whole website about like companies that do big layoffs that make the news and all this kind of stuff. And I actually saw a website. It wasn't like levels.fyi, but it was a website with .fyi as part of the domain, where it was literally just listing out like these are all the companies that have been doing layoffs and when and how many people were affected or what percentage of their workload was or their workforce was affected. At the same time, there are like 3 million unfilled software development jobs. So people are going to go get jobs. Like people are going to go find jobs. That I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue is the companies being too picky about what they want. And so I think companies need to be a little more open and relaxed around hiring like entry-level devs. So as far as like the job market goes, there are a lot of jobs out there. If you've got, a year or more of experience, you're going to be able to find a job. I think at the same time, we as the workers can choose to be a little bit picky about where we go to work because there are so many open jobs. And if you don't like a particular company, you don't like a particular job, there are going to be other jobs out there. At the same time, you don't want to job hop a ton. Like I know people that change their jobs like every 6 months because they wanted the next title, they wanted a pay bump and a pay bump and a pay bump. And, at some point that kind of starts to taper off a little bit because companies are like, well, I'm not going to hire you because you're just going to change jobs in 6 months and I barely get you trained and proficient in what we need you to do and you're going to leave. A lot of companies aren't going to want that. And so they're going to be looking at job histories too and realize that people are bouncing all over the place. So as far as the job market goes, I think that there's a lot of movement, but there's also a lot of considerations around work from home versus you need to come back to the office. And again, that's just where you need to stand your ground and say, I really want to work from home, or yeah, I really do want to like go back to an office. Everybody's a little bit different as far as what they want or need. And I think companies are going to start paying a whole lot more attention as people leave. Like as companies stand up and say, you must come back to the office, and the employee's like, nope, I quit. I'd rather quit than come back to the office. Then I think companies are going to start paying attention to that, and they're going to find there's going to be a balance in there. We've shown companies over the last 2 years that we can get our work done no matter where we are. If I got an internet connection, I can get my job done. In fact, even if I can't have an internet connection, I can still get a large portion of my job done. Doing content creation and putting training material together and doing recordings and things like that. I just can't publish them until I'm online next. But I can do my job from anywhere. And that's one thing that I love about Postman. They're super flexible about where you want to work and when you want to work. Some companies are trying to be a little more rigid and they're like, it's better when we're working together, but sometimes it's not. By the time you factor in the commute and the time that you lose in your day commuting to an office and trying to find parking or, whatever, like however you're getting to work. But then you've also got the noise of everybody else around you. Like right now I'm super distracted during the day because my kids are home from school. And so I tend to work in the mornings into the afternoon, and then I take a chunk of the afternoon off because that's when they're getting restless and they've used up the timers on their screen time and they're like, I'm bored, I want to do something. It's like, all right, well, it's like, let's go to the grocery store and we'll get some groceries just so you can get out of the house for a minute too. And like, and then I'll go back and I'll work in the evening a little bit. So I love that the companies are being flexible about that. But I think as you research companies, you're going to find the kinds of companies who are going to be a little more rigid about coming back to the office versus being flexible about working from home and when you work, like the when and where you work kind of thing. Every company is a little bit different as far as what their expectations are going to be. My hope is that we've proven over the last 2 years that we really can work from anywhere. We can get the job done from anywhere, and that companies are going to trust that we're getting that job done and that we're working as effectively as we can. As a manager, I know it's hard not being able to literally walk around the office and like talk to people. Like there's no such thing as impromptu conversation when you're working from home. Everything's got to be scheduled. Like, hey, can we hop on a call this afternoon? I just want to check up with you. It's like, is that really what you're doing? Or are you just like making sure that I'm working and I'm not like hanging out at the beach today or something? I mean, there might be some of that too, but it depends on your manager and it depends on what they want. And as a manager, I know that interaction time with your team makes a huge difference on morale and makes a huge difference around communication. At the same time, I think a lot of teams could kind of work out a lot of those communication issues to where they don't have to be synchronous. Like you can just ping me on Slack and say like, hey, update me on this or that. I'll get back to you when I get back to you. If I'm at the grocery store with my kid, when that comes in because I'm buying whatever to make for dinner, it's like, I'll answer you when I get home and, after dinner. Like, and I think some companies are just a lot better about it. That's my take on it. Is it going to get better? Is it going to change? I think we're still going to see some sort of back and forth and give and take on it a little bit over the next year. I think as some of this really settles out around like, can people really work from home, or do they really need to come back to an office? I think we'll start to see some of that shake out a little bit. What I found really interesting is folks like Elon Musk, where they're like, oh, Tesla employees, they have to come back to the office or they need to quit. But then he talks about Twitter and the acquisition. He's like, well, if they're a really good employee at Twitter, then they can stay remote. It's like, well, what about the really good employees you have at Tesla that you're forcing to go back? Like, it's a very double-sided kind of thing there. So let me go back and look through chat, because I know I kind of ramble on there for bits at a time. B Whiskey said, question, if you want to review these 3 full stack web dev curriculums, App Academy. So you said 3 curriculums, but I only see 2 links. So appacademy.io and rhythmschool.com. I haven't heard of either one of those specifically myself. Which one should you do? It's going to be a little bit hard to answer that because I don't necessarily know what your career aspirations are. But one of the links that you sent goes to a 404, and it's just a picture of a dog. And actually, both of those links go to 404 pages. So the appacademy.io goes to a 404 page, and the Rhythm School page that you sent over also goes to a bad link. Oh, it looks like courses in the parentheses got caught on those. Okay. So it's just how you pasted them in chat that they broke. So there's a Python course or another Python course. So you want to be a Python developer. So App Academy, learn to code for free. You get access to the full stack curriculum for free, no catch, no strings. And they talk about like what you're going to learn and so on. The other one, Rhythm School, I've never heard of them at all. They've got Python fundamentals. I mean, so from a code school point of view, and I've kind of answered this on a previous stream too, so I'm not gonna clip this one, but I'll share my thoughts. I've just recently covered this, so I don't want to like regurgitate everything all over again, but I also don't want to say like, oh, just go watch that other video. When you have online curriculum, the effectiveness of that curriculum and your chance of success depends a lot on how structured that curriculum is, but also the community around it. You can go find good online curriculum that exists like to like a really ridiculous amount. There's a ton of curriculum out there. Knowing which curriculum is actually quality, which curriculum is up to date, you're gonna have to kind of do some research on that. I can't do that research for you. When it comes to figuring out, is this school better than that school, or is this curriculum better than that curriculum? Again, they're going to be better for different things. Like one's going to be a full stack Python thing. One might be like just back-end Python thing. So like just looking at the ones that you sent over, one of them was like a full stack program with Python. The other one is like Python fundamentals for syntax and structure and object-oriented coding and web scraping and things like that. And it sounds like it's going to be just entirely back-end and no front-end at all. Like one of them's getting into the data structures and then getting into like lambdas and comprehensions and generators and decorators and things like that. That's all back-end, low-level kind of Python kind of coding. So they're very different programs. So all I can glean from this and what you've shared is you want to be a Python developer. But what do you want to do with that? I can't advise you on that. That's really your career, and that's a direction that you need to decide like what you want to take, and then go figure out which of these schools offers the curriculum that you need to go meet that goal that you've set for yourself as far as like what you need to go learn. So that's where I would start. Now, as far as reviewing, like, is this a good school? Is that a good school? Kind of goes back to what we've been talking about on this stream of like, you need to go do some reviews, like go check reviews. You need to find good reviews and bad reviews, and then figure out from there, like, are the good reviews all truthful? Are the bad reviews all like super dramatic, or are they actually talking about like real world kinds of things? Because sometimes, people are more vocal when they leave a bad review, like this is absolute garbage and absolute trash and I didn't learn a thing. And that's not necessarily the case. It just might be that it didn't meet their expectations. But again, you have to you can't really sign up for these things until you know what your expectations even are. So once you figure out what your own course path, the course of your career, not online course, but the direction of your career, where do you want your career to go? Then you can find curriculum. But with that curriculum, you don't want just curriculum. You need to have a community around you that can help support you, help you learn, help you grow, help you out when you get stuck. You need to have mentors. You need to have people that you can call on for help. Not necessarily call on a telephone, but like people that you can leave a message on a Discord or a Slack community or something, or fellow students, like other students going through a similar kind of program. So any kind of curriculum, it needs structure and it needs a community. And if you only get one or two of those, you're probably not going to be as successful. Doesn't mean you can't be successful. I want to be clear on that. It doesn't mean you won't be successful. You can be successful if all you have is a community and you're all kind of like driving each other like, hey, let's go learn this, let's go learn this. You can still go learn things. If all you have is online curriculum without the community of like, hey, did you get that thing done yet? I got it finished. Do you need help? Like, let's try to get everything wrapped up by next Friday. Let's submit this thing together and have that accountability. You might still get it done, but it's going to be at your own pace, and you may not work as quickly as other people too, and that's fine as well. But having that community can really help drive what you do and how quickly you're going to get through those programs and then ultimately get that job in the tech industry. So those would be the two things that I would look for in any kind of curriculum. So either of these code schools, they could be great schools, they could be complete garbage. I don't know either one of them. And I can't do that research for you. Some of them are going to be online. Some of them are going to be in person. Some of them are going to be free. Some of them are going to charge you money. Again, especially if they're charging you money, you have to go look at lots of reviews and make a decision for yourself whether it's going to be a good return on the investment that you're about to make by paying into that program. So you have to go look at reviews. You have to look at outcomes, not just the outcomes that the school reports, but you need to actually go find people on LinkedIn or other online platforms that have gone through that program, that are actually working in the industry, and ask them for their advice and their perspective on what it was like going through that program. You can't just trust the school saying, oh, these are our outcomes, they're great and amazing, because many schools have been caught lying about their numbers, claiming that more people graduated than they did, more people got jobs than they did, or they got jobs at more fantastic companies than they really did. You need to go find the real data. Like, I've seen online schools that are like, oh yeah, take this program. We totally had graduates get a job at Google. It's like they had 2 graduates get jobs at Google out of like 10,000 students. Well, graduates, plural, they're not lying. We had graduates get a job at Google. Yeah, 2 of them out of 10,000. I'm not saying those are the actual numbers, but they can play with those words a little bit to make it sound better than it actually is. There are other schools out there, though, that got together and said, you know what, we're going to put all of our statistics together and we're going to give it to somebody else to audit. And so they actually went to a business, or they formed an organization. I forget what it stands for. It's CIRR. And they're basically, it's a group that will help audit and survey students graduating from boot camps and programs, online programs, to verify that, yes, they really did graduate that many people. They really did go get jobs making this range of money, and they're working at these following companies. And they're actually going in and auditing it. And they're putting their name on it saying, yes, you can trust these numbers because we have audited them. It's not just data from the school claiming whatever, because you can claim whatever you want. And if somebody doesn't do their due diligence and look at reviews and see whether that data is actually true, you're going to buy into something that's fake or a scam or something like that. So you have to look into that yourself. I can't help you research that, unfortunately. It's a decision that you need to make as far as what they're teaching and whether that's in line with your goals. So it's really hard for me to make a recommendation saying, oh, you totally need to go do this program, you totally need to go do that program, because I could recommend something that costs a bunch of money that you can't afford. And I would feel bad making somebody go into debt or heaven forbid, have to take out a student loan in order to go pay for. And then at the end of it, not be successful and not get a job. And now you hate me because I made that recommendation. That's not something that I want to get into. So from that aspect, I'm not going to make a recommendation one way or the other. What I will say is you have to know what you want out of your career. What do you envision yourself doing? What's it going to take to get there? And then sort of like walk backwards. So say, like, if this is the kind of developer I want to be, what do I need to learn? Where do I go learn that? Let me go find a number of schools and then figure out who can teach me that in the amount of time that I want to take to get that job. So if you want that job in 8 months, 10 months, a year, okay, it's probably going to take you 4 months to get a job. So you're already going to be, now let's go with a year. You want to get a job in a year. It's going to take you 4 months to get that first job in tech, hopefully less, but it's probably going to take you 4 months to get that job. So now you've got 8 months to go learn what you need to learn to go get that job. So let's say you need a month to go do that research. Now you've got 7 months to go learn what you need to learn to get that job a year from today. So you can kind of like work out those kinds of things. So I would spend some time researching these schools, figuring out what they teach and whether that's compatible or in line with what you want for your career. I can't advise you on that. Kisu said, you heard about me through Scrimba. That's awesome. Yeah, I had a really good chat with Alex and Leanne from Scrimba. They were really, really good chats. Roller, good to have you drop by as well. I know I'm way behind on chat. So Roller, I'm just seeing your message. I hear this rhetoric of companies are viewing the market as an employee market where employees are picky because the market is competitive. That did happen. Yeah, for sure. And we saw salaries go into like ridiculous amounts of money again. And now a lot of those companies went back and laid people off. All these companies that were hiring people for ridiculous salaries turned around and said, we can't afford these, these salaries, especially when the market started kind of not doing well. And so a lot of these companies started laying people off just so they weren't spending all their cash. And that's the downside to paying ridiculous salaries is you have to maintain that over time. It sounds all fine and good to say like, oh yeah, we'll totally pay you $300,000 a year. Well, great. 3 employees just cost you $1 million a year. Like, does your company actually make enough money to pay 3 employees $1 million, to do the same kind of work that, a year, 2 years ago, you were paying somebody half that much money. And so some of that is just the market of like, people being competitive too, like saying like, hey, I've got skills, I've got experience, and, you offer me that job for $200K. It's like, I'll take it if you pay me $230K or $240K, $250K. And the company's like, oh, okay, I guess we'll pay that. And now you go online and say, yeah, I just got this job making $250K at that company. Now everybody else wants to go to that job and also make $250K. But now that's starting to like bump up everything else around it. So it's a little bit like the housing market too. As you start seeing housing prices go up, they continue to go up. And then it takes a while for that to crash and sort of recover and start over again. But it's a cycle that we've seen. And I've covered that already on our previous stream. So I don't want to go back into that again. But Melaruru asked in chat, would you consider a year of self-taught or self-teaching experience? Even though I'm technically going through 100 devs, it's not 100% self-taught. Well, it is self-taught. I mean, when you think about it, you're the one watching the curriculum and teaching yourself how to do a thing. You've got somebody there guiding you through it, but you could go to Udemy and look at somebody's thing on Udemy about like, go learn this stuff in this order. You're still self-teaching. You're still working through that curriculum yourself. You're still teaching yourself. It's very different from a classroom where you're in a classroom and someone's like literally teaching you. I know with 100 devs, there is like online classes where you actually attend the class and you're learning principles, but there's also a lot of self-teaching in your project work where you're building out your projects, and sometimes you have to go learn additional things than what they taught in the class, and that is self-learning. And so, yeah, I would say a lot of what you're doing with 100 devs would be considered self-taught, but yes, it's still a program as well. I'm not going to say it's 100% self-taught, but you are self-teaching for sure. Is it actual experience? I have thoughts on that. I see a lot of people who go to boot camps and code schools and things like that. Even the code school that I used to teach at, students would go through the program and then they would go to LinkedIn and be like, oh yeah, I'm a software engineer at the school. It's like, well, no, you were a student at the school. You weren't an engineer for the school. Like, you weren't a developer for the school. And so it, to me as a hiring manager, it feels like you're misrepresenting yourself when you say you work for that company. At the same time, project-based learning is a good way to build up experience, but it is not the same as professional experience. So in my mind, there's a very definite split. There's project experience and there's professional experience. To me, professional experience is where you have a job, you do the job, and you get paid. Project experience is where you're going through a curriculum and you're learning things and you're building up all these skills, but it's to build a project. It's not to get paid for building that project. Now, if you build a project for someone else and they pay you, then that is professional experience. So with 100 devs, when you do that freelance project, for example, my understanding is when you do that freelance project, you actually get paid. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't know for sure. But if you get paid for that, then yes, that is professional experience. But if you're like, oh, I want to go learn how to implement SendGrid's email to like build a little email subscription thing like Ian has for his email series, shameless plug, go listen to my email series. Then if you're going and literally learning that on your own and how to implement that and how to build that out and get it working and keep it working, then that's project experience. That's where I draw the difference between those two. So it is not professional experience in my opinion. Other people may feel differently, but I feel it's a misrepresentation when you say you work for the school or that your project is actually professional experience. Yes, you're learning. Yes, you are a developer, but you're not being paid for learning those skills. You have learned those skills as part of your online curriculum, which is either free or you're paying for it. You're not being paid to build that project. As soon as you get paid for that project, it is considered professional experience, in my opinion. Roller says, my company just went fully work from home, opt-in because they lost key senior people and product people because they weren't flexible. Yeah, and that's happening too. And so then you end up with a turnover, and now all the senior people that left just took a whole bunch of knowledge with them, and now all these other people are scrambling to kind of catch up and keep up. Melly says, I love being in person only because I'm a people person, but I waste so much time talking to people. Yeah, there's a balance for sure. RC Maniac just tipped. RC Maniac, you're a maniac. What the heck, dude? All right, let me go. RC Maniac, dude, just tipped $296.40. That's how far behind I am on this. So let me go. That puts us at $1,600 even. You did the math. You put it at exactly $1,600. Dude, that's ridiculous. All right, well let's go bump up the let's go bump this up then. We'll go to 1750. How's that sound? Well, we'll give us a little more wiggle room. RC Maniac, thank you so much. Like, my goodness. I wasn't expecting that at all. That's how far behind I am on chat. But thank you, RC Maniac. You blew my mind. That's incredibly generous. Thank you. And then we just had a subscribe come in from Taco149. Thank you for spending your Prime money. Appreciate that. All the Prime money is also going into that pot. So that's like another, let's see, it's $5. I get half of that. So I get another $2.50. So we'll add that on the pot here as well. Appreciate that. Let me go in and add that on here too. So, all right. Brilliant. You folks are great. Thank you for that. RC Maniac, thank you. Like, that means a lot. I appreciated our chat a couple of weeks back, and I appreciate your take very much. So folks, go give RC Maniac a follow. You'll notice over here, his username's got a little diamond next to it. That means I've marked him as a VIP. Absolutely a VIP in my channel. He loves giving thoughts and perspectives as well. Really active on Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff like that as well. So please connect with RC Maniac. Wonderful person to get to know. Lots of experience in the tech industry as well. Loves 3D printing as well. Just a really, really knowledgeable person. I appreciate your perspectives in chat. So thank you. That's so much amazing. Wow. There's a $100 discrepancy between the webpage and Twitch. Tech industry or techinterview.guide/money. Oh, I had a couple of resume reviews come in that I updated here that I didn't update on the webpage because I last updated the webpage on June 10th. Since then, I've had two private resume reviews come in at $50 each. That's where the extra $100 came from. So if you want a resume review, I will do them for free on the stream. You can go check this link out. And so for those listening, techinterview.guide/resume review. You can go check out that page and you can submit a resume to me in PDF format and I'll review it for free on the stream once we get a couple of resumes together. And there's a note about that I want to mention in a sec. I'll do it for free. But if you want a private review, what I do is I actually make a little video of sort of explaining like this is what I would do. So last week I did a private review where I recorded a video for someone And then another one where someone paid the $50 and actually got on a Zoom call with them, and we actually hung out for almost an hour. And like I literally like pulled their resume into Google Drive and showed them like this is how I'm going to reformat all this stuff, and then I gave them access to that document, so now they can take that and like continue to edit it and add their own detail to it and so on. So I'm happy to do that for that donation. So that $50 is also being considered as that donation money. And I appreciate that. And I'm matching all that money, all that's going into that fundraiser. So RC Maniac, dude, wow, that was amazing. Thank you for that. I'm way behind on chat. Let me get caught up here. B Whiskey kind of followed up and said all these have free available full curriculum. Yeah. So if the curriculum's free, that's great. You don't have to pay for it, but you still want to make sure that there's a good community around it, that you can have people hold you accountable to getting the thing done. You want to make sure that you've got support around you that are also going through the curriculum with you at the same time, at the same place. So if you get stuck on an assignment, you don't have to wait for someone else to get caught up to that point to also have that same assignment, or that someone doesn't have to think back like, oh yeah, I did that assignment like 6 months ago. Let me think how I did that. So if you can get any kind of program, whether it's an online program, self-taught program, you need a community of people going through that with you at the same time. So the one that I reviewed a couple of days ago that I put up on the stream, someone was asking my opinion of Free Code Camp, and it's the same thing. It's great curriculum. I've looked through it. It's really good curriculum, and there's a lot of curriculum over at Free Code Camp. They've also got an amazing community where there's people going through that stuff all the time. So that is one that I would say that's a good one to go check out if it meets your needs. Again, I can't just say like, oh yeah, go do everything on Free Code Camp. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying go check out what they do offer, and if that's in line with what you want for your career, I think it's a good choice. There are lots of other programs out there that may be more in line with what it is you actually want to go do with your career. So that's why you have to go do that research. But in the case of Free Code Camp, they've got good curriculum and a good community as well. You need both. You can't just have curriculum. You can't just have community. You need to have both, where they're kind of paired and you have other people going through the same curriculum as you at the same time. That's the critical part to really being successful at kind of that self-taught, and then coming up with projects and having a good project portfolio that you can then sort of pitch to companies when you're ready to go to work. Melly Ruru said, yeah, my old job, it would take 6 months sometimes for them to hire because the person hiring was so picky. Oof, that's tough. Wouldn't hire people over 40. Yeah, that's illegal. Wouldn't hire people if they missed one period on the resume, so they were like super, super picky about it. Would comment if the person interviewing looked like such a cute girl. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bias in there, and that person shouldn't be interviewing. And companies should recognize that. Like if Melaruru was one of my subordinates and I said, Melaruru, here's some resumes, go interview these people, give me back your recommendation. I'm telling you, I want you to go screen these people, and because I expect to hire one of these people. And so if you're like, nah, they're all garbage, it's like, they're probably not all garbage. And that's also why a company should never just have a single interviewer. You need to have a panel of people, and you need to have all those voices, and you need to hear all the opinions so that the company can make a decision as to who to hire. It's never up to one person. But if one person has a really bad experience, then you need to pay attention to that. I've relayed a story in the past where, as a director, I was hiring a developer on my team, and everyone on my team felt pretty good about them. I had a director of marketing come in and interview them, and they got kind of some weird vibes, but they were the only person that spoke up and said, something felt a little weird. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it into consideration. We thought about it, and it's like, okay, everyone else was like resoundingly, yes, we should hire that person. So we hired them. Well, it turns out the vibe that this lady was getting was this guy was like condescending and acting kind of creepy and whatever. And I guess I didn't understand that fully at the time when we were communicating about it, because it didn't take long for him to be in that job, for him to like let the creepy out. And they like, in between hiring him, I ended up leaving the company, and I found out he was basically asked to leave the company not long after that because he was creeping people out, especially the women in the company. And I was like, oh, I wish I'd listened more to that person when they spoke up. So if there's something like that that comes up, then yes, don't hire the person. But if there's a situation where, you've got multiple people hiring and everyone's like, yeah, I think we could hire them. They're going to fill the gap. Then great. But that's why you don't want just one person doing it. And if one person is constantly saying no, it's probably that person, because a company should never be that picky, especially on details like, oh, they didn't, put a period on the end of a line or they misspelled something. Let me get caught back up here. So V Whiskey followed up. These are free, self-paced. A couple of them with communities. The third one was 100 devs. Small point, I did write more detail in my message there. You missed some details. Okay, sorry, I missed the details. I was clicking on the links and trying to see what was there. So yeah, you do mention the languages and the community is smaller but inactive. You need an active community. So I just scrolled back up to see that. The rhythm school has no community. If there's no community, don't take it. And yeah, I missed the 100 devs one at the bottom of the list. Very large community, but also very active community. And lots of those folks are on Twitch, like live coding and or live streaming and coding and helping each other out. I mean, of the three, at completely at face value for what you've shared, I mean, I would go with 100 devs, but again, only if that matches what you want to do. 100 devs has very particular curriculum that they're trying to teach. If that's what you want, I think it would be a fine program. There are lots of people going through it, lots of people getting through it successfully. Some people, it's too fast paced for them. And so I see people on Twitter going, I had to kind of take a step back, or I had to take a step to the side, and I'm going to get back into it next time they start. I'm going to start over, kind of thing. So there's those kinds of things to consider. If they are teaching the curriculum for what you want to do in your career, then make it a consideration. For the other ones, simply because the community is either inactive or you can't find the community, that would be kind of a bad sign. Now, the school that I taught at, their community was all on a private Slack channel. So just because you can't see the community doesn't mean they don't have one. So again, you need to kind of do your due diligence, find out from other people, like actually contact the school and say, hey, I'm curious about your program. What is your community like? How do you support your community, and so on. So those would be things that you're going to need to take into consideration there. Sorry that I missed that originally in your message. That wasn't intentional at all. I apologize if you felt like I wasn't answering it fully. Still got a lot from the answer. Okay, cool. Yeah, I would say just ask a lot more questions and like talk to the schools themselves. Now the schools are going to say like, oh yeah, our community is amazing and wonderful, and it may not be. So again, like you can listen to them and say, okay, can I check out the community? I would like to interact with the community. Or do you have a day where I can like, get online and like talk to other people? Do you have like, group events or online events where I can interact with other people and see what the community is actually like? Because if it's just like everybody joins a Zoom call, but like nobody talks, that's also a sign that the community is not good. If you get in there and everybody's kind of talking and helping each other out, that's a sign of a good community. If they've got Discord, if they got Slack, something like that's good, but you also want to see how active they are. So again, it's all part of the research of, is this worth the investment of your time and maybe money? But if it's free, then that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with free curriculum. There's lots of great free curriculum out there, but you need the curriculum and you need the community. You can't just have one. Let's see what else we got going on. Tifer, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Sorry, I missed that a couple of minutes ago. I did see the chime come in, but I think I was in the middle of answering someone else. 100 Devs operates as an agency. You can show that as experience on the CV if you do the program perfectly. All requirements are done precisely. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would love to dive in on more detail on that. But what I was commenting on is like I've worked with a lot of code schools across America. I've done lots of webinars and things on like how to build resumes or talk about negotiations or talk about just the job industry in general or interviewing preparation in general. I've worked with more than a dozen code schools across America, and almost without exception, I almost want to say without exception, there are students at all of those schools that list the school as professional experience, and that is not the case. They're paying to be a student, or they got, even if the thing is free, but they are making themselves out to be a software developer for the school as professional experience, and that's a misrepresentation. I wasn't saying that people are doing that with 100 devs because I don't know enough about it, but the schools that I have had experience working with, actually hands-on working with, I've seen students at I think just about every one of those schools list the school as professional experience as opposed to project experience, and to me, that's a very different thing. Um, all right, I think I'm caught up on chat. Cool. Did someone just redeem something that yelled "Hey"? Oh, that was me doing the little cheer thing. So like saying thanks to Tifer for the follow. It plays like a little audio sample in the background. This one's like really long. I don't have my ear monitors in, so I don't know what sound is actually playing. I don't know if it's like a really long applause or like, what it is. Anyway, if so, it made me jump. If not, I need to find the website that just said "Hey." It was probably my soundboard. So apologies for that. I just like to keep RC Maniac on his toes. That's all. Cool. We've been going on for 2 hours. We got through a bunch of questions. I really appreciate the questions here. Happy to dive in a little bit more on this kind of stuff. So one of the things that I mentioned, and I did a little bit on the last stream, is actually making the stream a little more about demonstration of things. So if anyone sends over a resume review, I'm not just going to review it. I'm going to show you like how I might reformat it and actually do that as part of the live stream. And so any resume reviews going forward, they'll probably be a little bit longer than usual. Usually it's just like visually like, oh, I would change this, and it's just me kind of talking about what I would change or recommending changes. But what I'm going to do is if you send me a resume, I'm actually going to open it in Google Drive and show you how I'm going to make those edits. Just to give you a different perspective on it. And then I'll probably turn around, like email the person, like give them access to that document so that they can access it later and fill in other details and so on. You have a computer science degree. You're trying to get back with heavy skills. Okay. I mean, if you have a computer science degree, you're already a leg up on most people that are trying to go to a boot camp who are coming from a completely unrelated industry and they're just trying to change a career to get into the tech industry for the first time. If you have a computer science degree, you are also very equipped for a different kind of job than people going through these kinds of programs. So the way that I typically tell people on the stream is like, people with a computer science degree, you're going to go build the next great programming language or database or framework or whatever. You're more equipped to go build the tools, where people coming out of these boot camps, they're very well equipped to take a whole bunch of tools and build something really neat. And so to kind of go back to the Lego analogy, with the thing back here, as a computer science, student, you're the one designing the actual block. Like, just try to find like an interesting block here in this instruction guide. Of course, now I can't find one that I want one. So on this page, there's like a little hinge part that you put together over here. And that little ball and socket hinge, like as a computer science engineer, you're figuring out, how do I make this ball and socket? And how do I fit that together and make that a usable component for something else? Somebody else is digging through a bunch of parts going, I want to build a TIE fighter and I want something to kind of wrap around the outside of that wing. And I wish that I had some way of like bending it at a particular angle. What if I had a hinge of some kind? And now they go find your ball and socket hinge. And so people coming out of boot camps can look at all these tools and imagine, how can I put all of these components together to build an application? Whereas a computer science student, you're the one building those blocks in the first place. That's how I see that as a differentiation between having a computer science degree and not having a computer science degree. And that's also why I'm pretty critical of companies that say that a computer science degree is required for much of what you're going to do on the job, when that's not the case. Most of what you're going to be doing on the job will not require that really low level, intimate experience and knowledge of how are these signals actually going across the wire from the CPU to the RAM and back again to actually perform that instruction that says go add 2 + 2. Most people don't need that knowledge for building out the web applications and so on that we do. It's helpful. Yes, it's helpful. I'm not saying like you shouldn't learn it. I'm saying you don't have to know that in order to go build much of the applications that we use, and many of the applications that we're actually going through and building and designing. I studied computer engineering. I've got it I've got the college diploma for that myself. I've been doing this for years and years and years. All of the automation stuff that I've done recently around like hitting these buttons on my Stream Deck and clipping out little video portions and so on, like I've used almost none of that that deep inner knowledge of like how is the computer actually transferring this stuff around. I've used almost none of that. I know enough more from my work experience about how to do things in an optimal way and how to do things in parallel and when to do things in parallel. I've learned more of that on the job than what I learned in school. Because also, what I learned in school was 26 to 30 years ago. A lot of how we coded back then, we don't even code that way anymore. Like, yes, I learned C and assembly, like two very low level programming languages, which are still highly used and highly utilized, building out a lot of these low level tools. But I haven't coded anything in C in almost a decade, and I haven't done assembly since 1999. I don't think I've done any assembly coding at all since 1999. It's been 23 years since I've written assembly. I have no need for it in my career right now. If I were to get to a point where I was like doing super low level, like, uh, timing and things like that on a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino or something, I might bring some assembly into the C code to compile something to make it blazingly fast, but I'm probably not going to. Nothing I do is that mission critical, but that's me. That's, where I've taken my career, and I'm totally okay with that. But I'm saying a lot of what else we do in the industry where you're using Python, JavaScript, Ruby, C Sharp, all these high level languages, that computer science degree isn't going to help you as much. It can help you, yes. If you learn the algorithms and you learn like how to do things, it can give you a leg up. But those are also things you can learn on the job and be just as effective at on the job as somebody who spent all that time in a degree program. Am I saying a degree is a waste of time? No. Is it a waste of money? Maybe. Some schools, I think, overcharge for their tuitions. That's a whole other thing with student loans and whatever that I won't get into. Hey, Jerry, good to see you. But I think that a lot of what we do in the industry does not require a computer science degree. It is helpful, but it should not be a requirement. It should be a really nice to have, but it should not be a requirement for most of the jobs in our industry right now. That's my take. B Whiskey says, I'm trying to get back after a career break, trying to get into a higher paying job because I believe I need much more work, and that was the reason for taking upskill. I got you. Yep, and that's a great motivation to do it. And so I applaud you for recognizing that and wanting to go back and kind of continue that education. I've actually thought about going back to school myself, and I've actually debated should I go get a computer science degree just for the kick, just for the heck of it. But it's expensive. It's expensive. It's a long process. I'm not going to quit my job for 4 years and go do a full-time degree. I'd probably do like a couple of classes at a time and like get a degree like a decade from now. I should have started a decade ago, but whatever. Just to see like how things are different now from what I learned, 26 to 30 years ago. CPUs are very different now. RAM is very different now. The timings and the intricacies on the inside of that computer is a lot more intricate now than what I studied back in the day. But again, for what I do in my career and the kinds of coding that I do on a regular basis, I don't need to know all the intricacies and whatever of like AMD does this part better than Intel and they're both better than this or that, or this ARM processor is going to like do so much better. It's like, okay, if I'm doing that low level system development, then yes, a computer science degree would absolutely be beneficial in that kind of role. But that's not the kind of role that I want for my career, and so I'm not going to bother. But if you're just building out web apps and building out HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and we're using these higher level languages, I don't think we need that depth of knowledge in order to do that job. Like if I get into a job and they're like, hey, you know what, we need to scale this, we need to learn about resiliency and parallelism and whatever. Great. Go send me on a class. I'll go take like a couple of classes and I'll learn that stuff, and now I'll be really great at that. But, you know, just because I don't have a degree shouldn't disqualify me from doing 95% of the rest of that job just because I don't have that one little bit of knowledge. That's kind of my take on it. RC Maniac says there was a very liked professor in college who we're pretty sure is there because they got a PhD from MIT. They also graduated in the 70s and 80s and didn't improve since then. Yeah, interesting debate. Does getting paid draw the line of professional experience? If I worked on a project in a coding school, we had DSU, we used project management tools, we version controlled and deployed a product. Is that not professional experience? If not, what if I sell that program? Is it a professional experience then? That's a great question, Roller, and I appreciate you asking. Let me unpack that one a little bit. If you're at a code school and you're practicing like building out a full application, front end, back end, middleware, and you're deploying all of that and you're learning all of that, it's still a project. At the end of the day, it's still a project for school. To me, I draw the line of, were you an employee getting paid to do this, or were you a freelancer getting paid to do this? To me, that is professional experience. I've been coding since 1982. I started learning code when I was 8 years old. Does that mean I've been a professional developer for 40 years? It's going to be 40 years in August that I've been coding. I don't consider myself a professional developer for 40 years. I didn't get paid to be a developer until after college. I hacked on a lot of code. I wrote a lot of code. I tinkered with a bunch of shareware stuff back in college days, back in the 90s, when it was kind of this thing of like, build some code, share it out with people, and if you like it, you can pay for it kind of thing. I never got paid for anything that I did. But once I started working professionally, I started building little things, and I would charge people like little bits of money to do like a monthly subscription for whatever, and I would get paid for that. And so that I considered professional experience. As an employee, you're certainly, you're building up professional experience at that point. My take, though, is if you're just building projects to learn and continue to grow so that you can go get a job, then that's not professional experience. It's project experience that got you the job. The same way that when I started coding as an 8-year-old, that doesn't make me a professional developer as an 8-year-old. Yes, I'm a developer. I'm writing code. I understand what the instructions are doing. I understand why I have to code in a particular way, but that doesn't make me a professional coder. Like, if that were the case, where would that tipping point be between being a hobbyist who's learning something and actually being a professional, if not getting paid for it? So to me, being paid for it is where it kind of tips into the professionalism side. Just going back through chat. So I mean, if you build a project and then you get paid for it, then that I would consider to be professional because people are paying you because of what you built. So for me, that would then become professional experience because it's something that you built and you have customers and now you have to be kind of professional about it. Where a project that you're building because school needed you to build a little thing and you put it online because you needed to pass a class, is that considered professional experience? To me, that would be no. Again, that's just my take, but that's also why I tell people go listen to lots of perspectives, go get lots of opinions because other people may tell you differently. To me, though, I wouldn't consider that professional experience. Um, looking at, so yeah, Jerry, good to see you in chat there as well. So Jerry said, I recently read the results of a survey about cybersecurity. Only 42% of respondents said they thought a degree prepared new employees, yet 57% of them required a degree. Yeah. And it's really tough in cybersecurity because there aren't that many schools teaching cybersecurity as a degree program. Some of them are doing it as a certificate program, but not as a degree. And so to put a requirement like you must have a degree in order to get this job starts excluding a bunch of people who might be really good at that job from getting that job. And now your team and your business is losing out on um, on the experience of having maybe a diverse person on your team. Excuse me one sec. And I'm back. What else do we have in here? I'm trying to convince my youngest to write me some music loops. So we bought Nintendo Switches back in the day, and we got this program called Korg Gadget, and he's been writing little music loops and stuff like that. And we've recorded some of them on the PC, and some of them are really neat. And so he's figuring out a way to like make loopable songs and so on. So I told him if he could build up some loopable music, that I would actually play it in the background on the stream. And I just realized that my other stream music like completely stopped. I have no idea why. Let me go back and restart some music here. So yeah, so at some point we might have the youngest be a streamer, be a music streamer at some point. We'll see how that goes. He did finish one song, yeah. So we might get that up on the stream as an intro music at some point over the summer. We'll see. We got to get it recorded on the PC and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. RCManiac said one challenge is that CS has an accredited course. So if needed or not, people can look at the CS degree and say if you graduated. Yeah, and so, well, I mean, with any degree, with any kind of curriculum. So just kind of going back to the whole theme of like, what are you learning and how and what kind of community and stuff like that. You can come hang out. With any kind of community and sort of thing like that. Like if I say like, oh, I took this online program, I still have to demonstrate that skill as part of the technical interview. That part's not going away. But as a business, if I don't know that school, I don't necessarily put a lot of inherent trust into what you claim to have learned. And, am I going to go look up the curriculum and things like that? And that's why a lot of big programs like MIT and Stanford and whatever, they're very well known for what they teach. And if you can graduate, that means you have accomplished something of significance. That you have learned, a preset of curriculum or whatever. But when you go to like a code school and that code school isn't well known, that's why a lot of companies bias against code schools, because they don't know the code school. They can't trust the curriculum because they don't know what the quality is. And is it worth them risking a couple of hours of their time to have you come in and interview and not do well on the interview, and they're like, all right, well, clearly that code school is a waste of time. Well, maybe it was just that one person. And so a lot of companies are like, oh, we're just not going to bother with code schools. And then they also lose out on a lot of really good qualified candidates because, again, we don't need degrees to do a lot of the jobs that people coming out of code schools are fully qualified to do. That's just my take. I know it's a bit of a soapbox, but that's kind of my take on it. RCManiac says, my college offered a degree in cybersecurity. We also had defense contractors in the literal NSA who would hire in person from the school. So kind of had some backing in that degree. Yeah. And like I said, some organizations are going to put a lot more trust into certain schools and programs and so on. Does it mean you have to go take that program in order to get a job? No, but it will give you a leg up on it, certainly. But that also comes with a hefty dose of privilege. Not everybody's got the time to go back to school for a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, pay a bunch of money, especially to these prestigious schools, because now the school has a good name, and so next thing you know, the tuition's going up. Not everybody can afford it. And so again, you're excluding a large portion of population that could be absolutely qualified for that job if you just lowered that requirement from being required to have a degree to saying, like, if you've got any kind of certification where you can demonstrate that skill and go through the interview process, then we'll consider you as a candidate. That's where I think a lot of companies are missing out. Cool. Well, I've been going for 2.5 hours, so I think I'm going to wrap up there. I'm going to go get all these videos clipped out and all that stuff, so let's go find somebody to bug, aka raid. If you got suggestions for who to go raid, let me know. Leah T. Codes is online from 100 Devs. Midnight Simon. We haven't raided over to Midnight Simon in a while. Hey, Maestro Dunk. Thanks for the follow. I'll give you some blinky lights and some sort of greeting sound of some sort. Again, I don't have my ear monitor in, so I don't know if it's cheering or playing a kazoo or what. Lumber Chop Man, that's a great username. Thanks for the follow as well. We've got the guitar riff playing over here, so we can kind of bob along with the guitar riff. But I don't know what other sound we're hearing over here, but we'll give you some blinky lights as well. Thanks for hanging out. Really appreciate all the questions tonight in the conversation. I think these are good conversations, even if we don't agree on stuff. I think it's important to know that in tech, it's okay to have different opinions, and we can do it respectfully. And I'm just here to kind of share my thoughts and perspectives as a hiring manager on some of this stuff. My sound was just the Windows access sound, followed by another hey. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. I'll check the recording later on. So let's go find somebody to raid. Like I said, Leah T Codes is online. We might go raid over to her channel. Let me go mute this real quick as soon as it loads, because Twitch likes to make lots of noise. Babe Ross is online, so we got the Babe Ross painting over here on the side. We chatted about and showed off a bunch of times, so she was super happy that we were showing people about that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about. So I was talking about resume reviews. So there is a streamer who goes by the name of Tiffany. If anybody has ever followed Tiffany here on Twitch, at the end of the month, Tiffany is doing a whole bunch of resume reviews. And I was hanging out on her stream today. I was doing a bunch of other stuff, and I just had her stuff on in the background. And she's like, I'm going to do a whole bunch of resume reviews at the end of the month. So I reached out and I'm like, I also do resume reviews. Do you want to come on my stream and we'll do a whole bunch of resume reviews together? Because again, I think it's really good to hear different perspectives. And she's like, I would love to. So we're going to plan a Thursday night in July. I'm going to have Tiffany on the stream here. And then, you know, maybe we'll raid over into one another's stream or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But really quality streamer as well. So we're going to have Tiffany on the stream at some point in July. Looking forward to that. And if you also want to be on the stream and talk about like job experience and resume reviews and things along those lines, please reach out, because I do want to line up a whole bunch of guests over July and August, leading us into the fall. So I would love to get thoughts and perspectives on that. Let's see who else is on. Wow, there's a whole bunch of coders on now. We got somebody building a chatbot in Kotlin over at Techie Girl. We got Alina Likes Cozy doing some game development, no code game development with Unity. We got Midnight Simon online as always. Midnight Simon's always fun if you want to really dig in on leak code. Babe Ross doing some painting, abstract oil painting again. Leah T Codes. I think we'll go right into Leah. Actually, let's see, who can we go raid? There are a couple of other people that I maybe want to check out, but we'll have to see what the... oh, one of them literally just started streaming and not online yet. So yeah, we don't want to raid in on somebody who's not actually streaming yet. I think we'll go... What do you think? Chatbot or 100 devs? Well, it's okay. Someone with more viewers than me. I think we'll go right over to Leah T Codes for tonight. So Leah T Codes is going through 100 devs and also going through Scrimba as well. So good communities that I like to support. So we'll go right over to that channel. Make a whole bunch of noise when we get over there. And thanks again for hanging out tonight. Appreciate all the questions and the conversation. And we'll catch you on Sunday. And then I will not be streaming next Thursday. I'll be off. But I'll see you on Sunday. And thanks again for hanging out. Appreciate everybody. And thanks again for the questions. Youngest says goodbye. Yeah, we'll catch you on the flip side. Make a whole bunch of noise in chat when we get over to Leah's channel. And we'll see you over there. Have a good night, everyone.